Welcome back to the Titanic Zombies podcast. Today I got
Buddy Molina.
And Matt Walker
all right, and
in my natural habitat.
by the way, guys, Matt does not have pants on right now.
Oh my god.
Okay, so what I want to do is go around Matt, Buddy, me. Say who you're voting for, why.
Oh, starting with me?
Yeah.
Voting for Donald Trump Jr., of course. The only vote that should be casted, in my opinion. But hey, do whatever you want.
Donald Trump Jr.
Oh wait, no, senior.
You mean Donald J. Trump? You don't even know
Donald
who you're
J.
voting for.
Trump. Yeah, my bad. My goodness.
You got the Biden syndrome.
The Biden syndrome. I do right now. I didn't get very good sleep
That
last
drink
night.
isn't working for your cognitive.
I know. It's not helping my cognition.
You got to get the drugs Biden's on.
Yeah,
Which
there
ones?
you go.
You got to get the drugs Biden's on.
Oh gosh, yeah, whatever that is.
All right, Buddy.
I voted for Joe Biden.
Why?
You're proud of that?
Yeah, we're. I guess we'll get into it more in this podcast, but I just think, in my opinion, for me, it was a better option than voting for the incumbent.
Most likely Trump, mainly just because I feel like Joe Biden in particular is not a suitable candidate. And I think there's a lot stacking up against him, and we can go into that. First off, let's just start with, I guess we could just combine the two, the debates, what our thoughts were. So kind of going from the first and second one and kind of bringing up the highlights of both of the two. Something that I kind of had to look into a bit, and I assume it's just because it's a big industry. I saw people blowing up about how Joe Biden was going to eliminate the oil industry, and I guess that was a big thing that came out of the second one.
Yep.
Yeah, the second debate. And at first I was like, I'm kind of confused. Like, is that a huge deal?
It's a big deal.
So I looked into it, and yeah, so kind of like, what is your guys' opinion on that? And I did notice the moderator was like, why would you do that?
I know even the moderator said that. And I feel like the moderator was probably on Biden's side. Typically, they're a little left-leaning. I'm not sure, but I didn't look into it myself. But as far as the oil industry thing goes, as soon as he said that, I was like, he just lost so many voters, so many potential people that would vote for him.
Yeah, but did he really lose any voters? That
I mean,
I don't think
let me put
people
it this
who
way.
are in the oil industry are on the fence. I mean, I think they're clear supporters of, right-sided stuff because of the industry they're in. So I don't think he lost anything from saying that. But obviously, to be going back and forth on things you've said is never a good thing in a campaign.
That's what a
People don't
politician
like to see
does.
it. But I mean, it is fair to say that the context was different. Was he talking like he was talking about? Because right now they allow drilling and fracking and all these things that are involved with the oil and gas industry to be happening on federal land. And so, to be fair, he was saying that he's going to stop fracking on federal land, which is a big part of fracking. Don't get me wrong, but that's what the context. You can't just say, "Oh no, you said no fracking," and that's it. I mean, he was being specific about it, but from the debate, him saying we want to try to start eliminating the oil industry, that's a bold statement.
Absolutely.
And granted, he kind of backpedaled right after that and said, or at least the beginning process of transferring it to renewable energy, whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, the way I see it is, if there was anyone on the fence, which inevitably there's thousands and thousands of people that work for the oil
And
industry,
millions of people who already voted
Yeah.
at this point. But
Yeah, but there's thousands of people that do. So when they saw that statement, they're like, well, that's my livelihood. That's why I put, meat on the table for my family, things like that. That's going to wake them up. I mean, if they have any sanity at all, and then they see, oh, this person might, eliminate my job or is looking to, and that's his objective, then obviously that's going to, sway their opinion in some way. Whether or not that means they're not going to vote for him anymore if they did plan on it, that's to, for each individual,
Something that I was like in the middle of watching the debate, I feel like everything, no matter what they were saying or what they were doing, nothing mattered. I feel like the lines are already drawn. People who are going to vote for Biden are voting for Biden. People who are voting for Trump are going to vote for Trump.
I somewhat agree with that, somewhat.
I feel like that people who are
Mostly.
like moderate, probably a debate would kind of make them lean one way. But I feel like seeing politics, it feels like there's already those huge lines drawn of like, I'm voting for this candidate. And
well,
That's true.
I think it's fair to say too, having a quote unquote debate this close to an election,
yeah,
and with already millions of people who have already voted,
Yeah,
it's kind of pointless. I mean, granted, it's good to hear what their position is and things like that, but I truly don't think the second debate changed any minds for anyone on either side.
I
will say the first debate probably did more of changing of minds than the second debate.
I would someone agree with that actually, but I would disagree that the second debate didn't have any effect at all. I definitely think it did, but also as far as the first debate goes, I did not like. I love Trump. I didn't like his strategy.
I don't think a
wasn't
lot of
big
people,
fan his
even people who
performance.
support him, were just all like,
and that was
Well,
clear
I
in the
wanted
second
him-
one how he
Yeah, you could
didn't
tell
do
his demeanor changed.
Oh yeah, big time.
Probably because he saw Pence. Pence was really knocked it out.
I
of the
thought that
park,
was
in my
a
opinion.
really
'Cause I
good
thought
solid
Pence
Yeah,
was gonna
that
be
was a solid debate.
That was a
I
good
think it
debate. I
was-
thought Pence was going to be the one that kind of got slapped around by Kamala because Kamala's kind of built up.
I'm
as
speaking.
Kamala's kind of built up. Yeah, exactly. Kamala's kind of built up as like this like debate master and all this stuff. But
She's
then
good.
She's really good. I'm
But
not
Pence,
denying that. Like I wouldn't want to
obviously,
go up against Kamala Harris.
Pence
right?
is a smart,
Yeah, he's
for all
sharp.
intents and purposes, he's a smart guy.
I heard a good argument about people like someone like me. Like I've never necessarily heard Pence talk. Like it's always
I know,
Trump at the
for like
forefront.
2 years.
And
Before you-
I thought he was really well conducted. And something else that I thought was
He's a
that
secret weapon.
a lot of people, I guess, liked the normalcy of him. Like it's bringing back to just that traditional.
Normal political.
Yeah,
dude.
like the way he talked and everything.
Some
but
people like that. Some people don't like it. I mean,
it was like a breath of fresh
It's a
air.
good-
Because
I
like when I
agree.
saw that, I was just like, this feels like politics now. Like it doesn't feel like when
like a show.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
I think
stage.
people need to dive into who Pence is to really make an assessment. I mean, he is a very, very, I would call him a radical right wing person. And there's all kinds of reasons.
He doesn't have
why.
dinner with any other woman.
Exactly. There's
That's
reasons
not-
why
that's right.
that-
That's
I don't know. This
Trump-
is the thing I found
well,
out. I was like,
oh,
what?
conservatism has always been closely associated with religion. And that's
very
just
true.
the flat out truth. So because of his so highly religious beliefs, it definitely changes everything he decides as a politician, which I think is dangerous.
Do you
Well,
think
what I
that
like about him-
Amy, what's her name? Amy Karen Bonnet,
Coney Barrett. Yeah.
Coney Barrett. Yeah.
No, that's something that most
You
the
mean
left
ACB?
wing.
Huh?
ACB.
Yeah,
Yeah,
ACB.
I
ACB.
like it. Yeah.
That's one thing the left doesn't like me saying. Don't get me wrong. Like there's certain decisions she's made in.
Wait,
in
so are
her
you confirming
own-
your left wing?
No. I'm saying the left wing doesn't like my opinion of her because I
'cause
truly
you're more-
don't think
yeah.
she's that bad.
that's
Like
good.
I for all intents and purposes, I like her. I think she's smart.
You're more
I think she's
objective about it.
But she has made some questionable decisions as a federal court judge, and you have to once again, you can't just be shallow about it. You have to look at the cases, right? And the case that comes to mind, and granted, my wife's in law school. I'm very much into politics, so like I make it
liberal
a point,
lawyer.
I make it a point to do the research behind these people. But there's a decision she made that really, really makes me think of what kind of person she is because she
Kamala
said,
Harris.
well, no, let me give you the story. Or it's a very short story. This person was suing an employer for having a volatile work environment. This person was proven, like through witnesses and everything, of calling the person an N-word, calling the person names,
Wait, what's
being
the
a
N-word?
very person. Come on, using racial slurs to them, and Amy Coney Barrett determined that calling someone racial slurs and cursing at them and yelling at them in the workplace did not constitute a hostile work environment. And I think that's a very dangerous viewpoint when it comes to putting them on the Supreme Court. Because now when you have a case against your employer and you were treated wrongly or something like that, if you're a person of color and you've been treated wrongly because of your race, now taking it to the Supreme Court is going to be, you don't know what's going to happen. Even though in your mind, this is a clear cut of racism and making my work environment hostile and making my job harder for me. Now, oh wait, this Supreme Court justice doesn't think that constitutes a stressful work environment. Even if they called me a spick or a beaner or a wetback because I'm Mexican, or if you're black, they're using the N-word or any other kind of racial slurs.
Well, I think it's a stretch to say that ACB, Amy Coney Barrett, would support that behavior, though. Now, listen. Now, hear me
it's
out.
on. She
me out.
made the decision.
Well, hear me out. Well, what I'm trying to say is, first of all, we got to look into that. I mean, like, how deep did you actually look into it, for one? And then two, I mean, you got to, like, question, like, what's the argument on both sides, too? You know what I mean? Like, why did she say that? And then, you know, like, how true or how much of that story that you heard is true? And then where'd you get your sourcing from?
I read the actual court case. Basically, long story short, Xana, my wife, is reading the case for school. So we're reading it together, reading the entire case. And so whenever judges put up a decision, they have to write not a deposition, but they have to write why. And so I've read that entire thing that she said why she's supporting it. And to make it all come together, you know, and I could give you the information so you can link that information in your podcast. But it's basically,
I'm not saying you're right or wrong.
She explained why she doesn't feel that creates a hostile work environment. But
I'm not saying you're right or wrong.
Calling someone the N-word in any kind of scenario, if they're black and you're at work, is the last place you think you should be saying that stuff.
Absolutely.
And to think that doesn't make that person's work environment hostile is a stretch.
Yeah. Well, what I'm trying to say is that, you know, personally, I haven't looked into it, so I can't really say. I mean, everything you're saying sounds good, but you know, I have to look into it for myself to know, you know, the facts about the case and all those things.
Sure.
So, but
I'm just
as
saying
far as
that's
ACB,
my concern.
I don't think her
with her.
character should be. I mean, personally, I think, you know, character-wise, she seems like a good lady. I think the character thing is the last thing with ACB that I would call into question. I mean, if you're a liberal person, you might think, okay, well, she seems to be a little bit right-wing, a little bit too conservative for me. That's where I, you know, can understand that. But as far as her character, I mean, she doesn't seem like a bad person at all based on what I've seen and, you know, the research I've done, things like that. She seems like she's got a good character. That's not her main issue. Hers would be, you know, the fact that, you know, left-leaning people might not feel like they're being represented by her, and that might be their biggest critique. And that, you know, I'd say that's a fair one.
Well, I mean,
because, you know, if somebody put in a super left-wing judge, then I would feel like, you know, okay, well, they're not going to be fair to, you know, on conservative issues. So I would understand that. But I think, you know, personally, that she seems fair. I mean, she's been a judge for a long time.
But here's the thing about it is people need to stop looking at it, and this is once again going to be something that liberals might not agree with. We need to stop looking at the Supreme Court justices as people that need to be represented across the board. We need to have a white one, a black one, an Asian one, a Hispanic one.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Blah, 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 blah. The law is the law. And that's it. The law is the law. So we need to have people that have an understanding that the interpretation of the law has to be fair and not bring in their biases. Now, once again, I understand and I'm realistic. I know that's impossible. We all have biases to a certain degree, but we need to be able to appoint people that we feel have the capability to leave as many of those biases to the side and revert to the law. And that's it. So to me, in my personal opinion, I think ACB can do that. I think she's a good enough candidate to do that. Hey, people should be happy that Trump nominated her and not someone else who truly is like a hardcore conservative.
Yeah, I'm just happy there wasn't a clown show like there was last time when he bought, you know, Kavanaugh in. That was ridiculous.
Well,
Everything
Kavanaugh
around
is ACB is head over heel by a mile better of a judge than Kavanaugh is. Kavanaugh is not as smart as she is not as, I should say, it's funny to say this, but not as well read in the law as ACB is. So I can't even compare the two because she is so over the top, in my opinion.
Well, to be fair, I've never met ACB. I've never met Kavanaugh. Therefore, I can't make that distinction.
No, once again, I'm just because I do. I'm not saying I'm diving deep way into their lives or anything like that. I'm just going off of their stuff as being a judge, what they've rendered, and things like that. And I
But
think,
I mean, either way, I mean, he's just a president. He thought Kavanaugh was a good pick. He put him in. He thought ACB was a good pick. He put him in. Why does there have to be this circus surrounding Kavanaugh? And
'Cause
then
Trump
they
doing
try to, accuse him
Well,
about it. And then they
yeah,
asked, it was really disrespectful. They asked ACB when the Senate was confirming her, they questioned her. One of the, more liberal people on the Senate said, have you ever had any allegations of sexual assault put against you? What kind of question is that? You're asking this, judge who's been, a judge her whole life. That's just a woman, probably, what is she, in her 40s? And then you're getting questioned about your sexual behaviors in your personal private life. Like, I think that's totally disrespectful.
well,
They also asked.
Why would
you're also saying this is disrespectful coming from a supporter of a president who doesn't give a fuck about what he says and who's hella disrespectful.
That's
to
my
a
favorite
lot of
thing about him.
people.
Is that he doesn't give a fuck.
So you can't hold that standard to them if you're not holding your own guy to that standard. So you're kind of being a hypocrite.
Well,
there.
no, I don't think
But-
that's hypocritical.
Absolutely. You're saying, oh, this is disrespectful, but my president can make fun of a physically handicapped person and
That's actually
tell
not
women,
Yeah.
tell people you could grab
That's
women
actually
by
out
the
of context.
pussy. No, I'm just saying.
Well, the
that's-
grab of the pussy
A
thing's
lot
not.
of people would say that is disrespectful. That is no matter the context, to physically make a gesture of making fun of somebody who has a physical, who's physically disabled is disrespectful. I'm just saying, hold your own guy to the same standards you're holding them. But with
I
that
hold
said,
Trump to a very high standard.
I don't think it was probably a good question. I mean,
Yeah.
it just makes it look even more like
More biased.
Democrats are fishing for something, and they'll throw anything out there. If it catches, then they'll run with it, right? Like,
Well, I agree with that.
I
They asked
totally,
if she liked,
I totally get that.
What was it, like small puppies?
Which ones?
They asked if she liked small puppies, and then she said she doesn't hate chinchillas.
Really?
I thought it was like really random,
It's
but
kind of funny, I guess.
Yeah,
I only watched
Yeah.
like 30 minutes of it.
I hardly watched any of it because I don't really care.
I didn't really care either, to be honest. I'm just like, just put the lady in.
He's-
Like, there shouldn't be a
Listen,
fight
he's
about
not wrong, right? Like,
I'm not
Trump
saying
is,
that they shouldn't
Trump
ask
is not
questions.
wrong. He is not the president for only 3 3/4 of a year. He has the full
Well, didn't Obama do the same
right
thing?
and capability of nominating someone for the Supreme Court
That's
justice.
his job.
It's his job. He can do that. But just like you said, it's about going for confirmation. Was there a precedent set when the Republicans blocked Obama from doing it? That's the debate. I'm not going to say whether it is or not. I'm thinking, well, yeah, they should. But once again, if the roles were reversed, it would be the same thing, right? So they all need to get on the same page, and maybe moving forward, the Senate or the Supreme Court needs to determine something that is a rule, a written rule saying, okay, this amount of time before an election, you can't do it.
Or you
it
can.
won't- You
Yeah.
can, but it won't be confirmed until the next president is in office or something
No,
like that.
see, I don't agree with
don't
that. I think if the president's
If
in
you
office
don't
for 4
agree
years,
with that, then you should have let Obama nominate and have his confirmed. If you don't believe in that, that's just the flat out truth.
that's fair.
So
Well, I see. The thing is, though, is I don't put the blame on Trump for that. I mean, if anything, that'd be
No.
Republicans at the time.
no, like I said, Trump has full right as the president
Trump wasn't
of the
in
United
office
States
yet, you know what I mean?
to
He had never been in.
nominate a SCOTUS.
Let me transition here into something else. So that I think is a good point is people like to act like, man, if only we get Trump out, like all of our problems will be solved.
I think that's a like.
Well, it's bogus because Trump's only been in office for 4 years. What about the other many years before that when there were still many problems, still lots of things that people wanted done? And
Well, just like how
He's
black
not
issues
even-
are such a huge thing right now. When Joe Biden and Obama were president for 8 years, well, I think Black Lives Matter started in what was it 2013?
well, then we had the Ferguson riots, we had all that, and then we had the Democrats of where was it? It was of Ferguson, saying, "Oh, we understand some of you, want to express yourself through destruction, so we're going to leave room for that." That's not management. That's not good leadership. That's very poor leadership. And then look at where it's all happened. Seattle, we had Chop, whatever they called it. We had Chaz, and then
They set up borders
Portland,
and right
and then
away.
New York. All these places, all these liberal-run cities, terrible management, terrible leadership. And if you want more of that, then I guess vote Joe Biden. That's the way I view it.
I mean,
I like
we went
Law and
into this
Order.
the last time. You can like Law and Order, but it's because you're a white man.
No, see, that's bogus. See?
That's not bogus.
See, I don't claim anything on you because you're Mexican. I don't, ever put that. And by the way, I'm also Mexican.
I'm not saying that you. Yeah, but do you live as a Mexican?
Well, what do you mean, though?
Do you embrace
He
the
goes to
culture?
Taco Bell. I've seen him go to Taco Bell.
Do you embrace the culture? Hey, it got voted #1 Mexican restaurant.
Did it really?
What?
The importance.
That's so not
That's
true.
the importance of voting, people.
Yeah.
You need to vote because this happens. No, it's because it's true, bro. Because if you don't live that life, then you can be that person all you want. I have cousins who are completely white passing who do not live as Chicanos. They don't embrace the culture. They don't know it. They don't live that. So they live a white life, or,
I hear you, yeah.
for instance. But when we're bringing up
Well, let me ask you a
policing
question.
and the judicial system, it is the most clear and flat out example of how systemic racism works.
Well, let me ask you a question though. So let's not get off the topic we were just on for just a moment, because we're gonna end up talking about politics for a while, and no matter what, we're gonna beat each other over the head, and neither of us are gonna ever change our mind. So let me just ask you a question.
I'm trying to change your mind. What I'm trying to do is present you with information.
Well, let me ask you a question though.
Another...
Let me get into what I was gonna say.
Yeah, go for it.
So what is, and I'm not saying I disagree with you at all, but what is living life as a Mexican versus how I live my life? And that's just that this is a relationship-based question.
Well, it's just, once again, it's contextual. I'm not trying to dissect your life, but what I mean is, if you are white passing, and even for me, I consider myself to a certain degree white passing. There's certain things that we don't have to worry about in our life when we are going through the motions of life. If you get pulled over, or if you see police, or if you already got something going on and you're in court, you probably it probably doesn't even cross your mind that your race or your ethnicity would ever be a factor in that
decision
scenario, not decision, but in that scenario of being in court or being involved with the police, right?
Let me ask you something.
You gonna let me finish or what?
Well, I'm not disagreeing with you. Yeah, go ahead.
You know what I mean? So that's the difference. Now, if you're embracing and living in the culture, that means that you acknowledge and you understand your own privileges, but also acknowledge and understand the different challenges that people of color have to go through, who are people in your culture or in your ethnicity have to go through that are different from your own. That's what I mean. You're Matt Walker, that alone.
Matt Walker, white kid. Okay.
White guy. Exactly. I'm saying the systemic racism sees that name, and on paper they're going to treat you differently than when they see me. When they see Javier Antonio y Bob Molina written on my ID, it's going to be totally different. And the clear cut to that is the judicial system that sees black and brown people over the top treated differently than white people, just merely from their name or from what they look like. Not even what they look like, even just their ethnicity in general.
Well, I actually hear you on the what you said about the Xavier, blah blah blah, all that stuff. Your name and all that. So that's actually fair. But I would argue that when they actually hear you talk, then they're like, oh, okay, this isn't a thug. This guy deserves some leniency because you're very well spoken.
But that's the thing.
So is
Matt,
that, hold on real quickly,
yeah.
is that the white part of you, the really well spoken? Is that what you're trying to get at? And I'm not claiming you're, because I know you're not a racist, but I'm just saying.
But I'm not white.
Is that the distinction? Because I don't understand,
I don't understand what you mean by
because
is
you
that
said
part of
how
I'm
you
not
live
mixed.
is
So
you're 100% Mexican?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I mean, is because you said you even to some degree you feel like you live your life as a white person. You said
no, I didn't
or
say
that because you
as
said
a
that
white
I
person.
am Matt Walker. I lead I'm
saying
I don't
you don't
carry
embrace
myself like a Mexican person.
No. I said you don't embrace the culture, and I said the point of what I mean by embracing the culture is you're not opening up your mindset to how people who are Hispanic or Chicanos or black.
Well, let's be fair to me real
anything.
quick. So am I not opening up by asking you these questions though and trying to understand your point of view?
Yeah, but I still think you kind of deny systemic racism in general.
Well, I'll tell you what. I would
I
say,
think you and Victor constantly, when we have these conversations, kind of deny that these things happen. And even though I present you with factual things, and I've even challenged Victor to talk to his own family about certain things that they've gone through, to deny systemic racism, to deny that racism isn't happening on a larger
I never
scale.
denied it. I said I do think it happens, but not to the extent in which you present it.
That's what I mean.
Can I talk for a second?
Yeah.
So
go
I
for
just
it.
want to go a little bit into my background. I'm not going to like get all heavy and sappy or anything like that. But my mom's half Mexican, so I'm a quarter. My mom's half Mexican. Her dad's 100% Mexican. And then her mom's has some native in her as well, so I'm a little bit native as well. But yeah, I mean, where she comes from the Indian or Native American reservation in Idaho. And it's all Latino and Native American people. She comes from a like total, very vicious, like crime-ridden, like very bad economic place. So I understand that point of view because I've heard all the stories from my mom and these things. And my mom so she's total like in that community. She came here because she wanted to get away from that because her family on my mom's side, pretty crazy. A lot of them. Some of them are in better places now, but a lot of them are pretty crazy. A lot of them are very violent. A lot of them are very. You talk to them, you can't really communicate with them because then when we get into the politics side of it, they're very left leaning as well because they come from that inner city, I guess, like Native American reservation.
Well, they're just not educated, I would argue.
Yeah,
they're not.
Well, exactly. That's my
They're
point.
not on the up and up with the things you're talking about.
Exactly. That's kind of similar to your background, I would say. And she came.
No, I wouldn't say that.
Well, she met my dad, and then my dad is like total white boy, and he came here. They came here together to Washington State, created their own life and everything. So that's why I do carry myself, and I would agree to some degree as a white man or whatever, or as a white, I guess young man. But I would say that's true, but mostly just because I'm educated. I wouldn't say it has anything to do with my race. I would say that a lot of people that are in bad positions financially or they've gotten into crime or things like that is because they didn't see any other way out, but also because they weren't, properly educated. I would say that's more to blame than the race thing. That's my personal point of view. I'm not trying to say that those people that do share your point of view are like that they don't have a point to make either. I do think they're coming from a place of sincerity.
Right, but you have to look at the history of things, and you have to understand why are these communities of people of color higher in crime and higher in poverty than these communities of white people. So you have to look at the whole picture. You can't just be like, well, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, like white people tend to say all the time.
I think those are both fair arguments.
There are things, no matter what, there are obstacles that people of color have to go through that white people don't have to go through. That is a fact. That is a sad fact, but that's the truth. And it's close. It's inherently proven through statistics, through people, how much people get paid at their job, how often are they picked up for new jobs, or how often will they be called back, the judicial system, how many years they're being sentenced, what is their sentencing, do they get a second chance, like we were talking about before?
Heard the term,
those kinds of things.
I've heard the phrase, there's a lie, there's the truth, and then there's statistics, which is you can shape a statistic to look any way. And so that's true of that. You could say that of the gun argument. You can make the gun argument look like guns are bad, and then you can also make them look like they're good. So the way I'm saying it is you can perceive those.
What I mean by
let me finish.
Just
and I'm
real
not
quick.
trying to.
What
to say,
I mean by statistics is data, not just here's this Pew Research poll.
Yeah.
Like I totally understand that. I'm saying data, straight up from the state, from the federal government, saying sentencing rates, probationary rates, how many people they're putting on probation versus sending them to jail, how many people have a violent contact with police, how many times is it a
there's
white
a case to
person
be made
works
for that. There's absolutely a case to be made
what
for
I'm
that.
saying is you
not
can't
saying
skew that information. The information is what it is.
Yeah.
And there is a huge gap between sentencing rates and things like that for people of color versus white people. Once again, we're talking about people who are in the system, who are having a relationship with the system. Hey, don't get me wrong. If you live your life and you try to do your best and you stay out of trouble, you won't have to deal with that one, right?
The part of this that I find to be unfair, and I'm not saying that it's not true and you don't have legitimate points. What I'm trying to say that I think is unfair is to say, black people or people of color or people from these minority communities, they had to work harder than you to succeed, or they have to work harder than you to succeed. You had it easy. The system's gamed so then you can
No,
succeed.
see,
I had to, for me myself, I had to go through. Everybody has their own like things they have to go through and things that they have to conquer in order to be successful. Everybody does, and I did as well. I mean, mine might be minuscule compared to someone else.
No, it's not.
But it still was incredibly difficult, no matter what.
My point to it is you need to take, once again, I think you hold certain groups to a certain standard that you don't hold yourself to. We've had countless conversations about victimality and being the victim, and you're doing the same exact thing now. When you hear systemic racism, you're hearing, oh, white people have it so easy and we do everything. No, systemic racism doesn't mean that white people don't have struggles, that they don't have challenges, that they
I would argue a lot of people say that.
Boost and blah, blah. No, not a lot of people. It's because you're not realizing what systemic racism is. All systemic racism means is that when you go up to the table, you don't have to think about your race. You don't have to think about your ethnicity. That doesn't mean you don't have problems. It doesn't mean you don't have challenges and struggles. That just means your race or ethnicity isn't one of those.
Well, let me say one
struggles.
thing.
And it's saying for people of color, they have their normal struggles. They have their normal stuff. And on top of that, they have to worry about their race or an ethnicity. That's what systemic racism is.
I don't think. See, I think all that does, all this belief, and then what's drilled into minority communities by the media and other places, and by their education and by being told these things, is they're creating a victim mentality.
They're not being told that though.
Well,
that's
listen.
your problem.
Let me talk real quick.
You
Hold
live
on, give me a
through
minute.
it. Yeah.
Give me a minute. So they're being basically manipulated into developing their own victim mentality. So then they believe that no matter what they do, they can't succeed because they're this race, or no matter what they do, the system's against them, so they can't succeed. So they have to conquer the system in order for them to be successful. And I don't think that's true. I think nobody can succeed with a victim mentality. You have to get through that. You have to realize, and it's individuality. I totally believe, I'm an individualist. I believe that everyone has to hold themselves accountable for where they are in life. So I don't care if you're black, white, Hispanic, Native American. If you're in a bad place in life, you can't just blame everybody else. You have to take some of the blame on yourself, and then you have to work on being a better version of yourself. And that's why I love self-development, because working on yourself, I believe conquering your inner game is like will manifest positivity and better results in every area of your life if you just conquer what's in here. And I think that giving these people a victim mentality doesn't serve them at all. And then, blaming the fact that, oh, you're black so you can't succeed, or you're Hispanic so you can't succeed, or it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to succeed. I think that, let's say it is true. Let's argue that it is true.
But we're not arguing that, because
let me real quickly argue that it is true. Let's argue that. I mean, just to be fair and give everyone a fair shake. Even if that was true, I don't think drilling that in them helps them succeed at all. And I want to see people succeed. That's
but
all
what
I'm
telling you is there's no one, in my experience, on that end. No one I know has ever just been told these things and they just believe it. Like,
didn't
saying.
We just have this conversation at the debate about the dinner table conversation? You're black. You're going to come upon people that, and I'm not saying that's not true. I'm saying
the examples that I'm using and the points I'm making are from people and from my own experience that have experienced it. Someone didn't just say, oh, you're not going to succeed because you're a person of color, and I just believed them. Mm-hmm. It's because my lived
I'm not saying
experience,
you have a victim mentality at all, by the way.
I'm saying those people, most people, and I'm not saying that you're wrong either. Mm-hmm. I totally have experienced some people that straight up think they're going to, they blame the white man for everything, right? Like, they just blame them for everything they do,
straight white,
and they don't
man.
do anything to help themselves. I totally understand what you're saying. Mm-hmm. You have to do your part. What I'm saying is
that's my point.
Sure, but what I'm telling you is I would argue that the majority live the experience before they ever make that claim. Mm-hmm. So there is a certain amount of life experience with having their race or ethnicity held against them, that they have enough to say, well, yeah, it's because of this and this. Once again, I agree with you. I think we need to do our best for ourselves to project ourselves and stop blaming everybody for every wrong thing that happens to us. We need to just say like, hey, you either need to say, take accountability for what you've done, or just say, okay, there's things that people have done to me, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to try to do my best to better my life. What I'm saying is there's a system that's in place right now that is drastically broken because it is geared against people of color. And that system is the judicial and policing system. And that's just the truth. And I don't understand why people in your position or other people that I've talked to can't understand that. Why can't we all get behind that?
Yeah. Well, don't
You know
group
what I
me in
mean?
with the people that say there's nothing wrong, that it's totally perfect, because I'm not that either. I think that there's absolutely problems with our system. Of course there is, because nothing's perfect. No, there's nothing that exists is perfect, period.
Right.
So there's no perfect system either. I would just argue that it's less widespread than the media would like you to believe, is all I'm saying. That's my viewpoint. I don't think it's as major. I think it does exist in certain places. I think what happened to George Floyd, for example, was like a total abuse of power, and definitely there was no justice served there. It was terrible, and I think that the cop that killed George Floyd, absolutely. What I don't care about there's all these stories about George Floyd was on drugs and all this crap. Like, I don't care about that. He didn't deserve to die.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
That's the way I view it. So I think that that people just need to really, I think the biggest issue is that people are so divided right now. There's only the far left and there's only the far right. I mean, of course there's not, but you see what I'm saying, is that people are just getting so radical that they can't come together and just have a conversation. And I think it's good that that we can do
talked
that.
about that, where just him having the opinion of, I don't think kids should be able to transition.
Oh, yeah.
That is a huge thing that the left would just be like, he's not with us.
Huge.
And
Joe
it's not
Biden
just the
said
left,
that
it's
was
the right.
fine.
The right has problems too, absolutely.
Well, yeah, and the left has its own things too, especially with that kind of stuff. I've had conversations with friends of mine who, when I knew them or when they were more in my life, they weren't transgender, but now they are. And so I've had these conversations with them about this kind of stuff. And a lot of time we disagree on this stuff. We've disagreed a million times. But when it comes to what we were just talking about, I think you're right. I think there's a huge divide in our country right now. And in my opinion, I think a lot of it has to do with Donald Trump, not him doing things directly, but his persona has created this divide, because people feel like you either have to love him or you have to hate him. You can't.
There's no middle.
There's no
I agree
middle,
with that.
and that's been a polarizing subject throughout his term, his first, his 4 years, and so I think that's bad. I think he needs to do, if he wins, and once again, I've told you, I'd be surprised if he lost.
Yeah, me too.
I think his second time around, he needs to do a better job bringing people together. I think he has to. And I think if by some chance Joe Biden wins, he needs to do a better job as well, bringing in, the right, or the, more conservative people. He needs to help them understand and help them come in and be somewhere in the middle, for sure.
So something I have for you is, buddy, something that I always see, like people like Dave Rubin, they're like, I didn't leave the Democratic Party, it left me. A lot of people are making the argument that the Democratic Party had just gotten so far left, especially with Joe Biden, and that's why a lot of people aren't gonna. I don't want to say a lot, but like you see a lot of Joe Rogan. He said he was voting for Bernie. He's not. Now he's saying he's not going to vote for Joe Biden. He's going to vote for Trump.
Rogan said that?
Yeah.
Really?
You didn't see him say he was going to vote for Trump?
I didn't. I missed that. I didn't
You see that he posted the Joe Biden thing where he's like, Joe Biden as president's like going on a hike.
I saw that with,
like
no flashlight and all that stuff. That was good. I liked that. It's true.
But I guess my thing to you is like, what to you makes Joe Biden a better candidate than Donald Trump? Like, what do you see that Joe Biden is that Trump isn't, that Joe Biden would lead the country better than Trump?
Well, there's a handful of things. Kind of not surface level, but like the first thing that comes to my mind is these examples of, the debates and the things that Donald Trump has on his platform. He has no plan in my opinion. All right, we haven't seen it. All he ever talks about is how terrible it will be if Joe wins. Instead of just saying, okay, here's the question. This is what I'm going to do about it. And this is what our plan is, right? He has no vision for a lot of these different issues. Race, you know.
He just did that thing with Ice Cube.
Environmental stuff, all that kind of stuff. Well, he hasn't done anything yet.
Yeah, he hasn't done anything yet, but
they've all said they would, of course. We're only weeks from an election. Yeah. Of course he's going to say yes. Or
well, the Democrats said yes, but let's wait after the election. Did you watch it?
Well, because they're smart. Why would they say, yeah, I'm going to agree to all this stuff if it's going to be drastically different for them if they don't win enough seats? If they don't have the power, they can't do anything anyway. So if Republicans own the seat and own the house, all that stuff, they wouldn't be able to do anything. But let me answer your question. Those are a lot of my concerns with Donald Trump is there's no clear plan, you know, and once again, it's not anything of his fault that the virus was created. Coronavirus
China's fault.
Was an unprecedented thing. No sitting president has ever had to deal with something like this on this global scale, except for when the Spanish flu was, but back then without the research. It was just different then, so I don't even compare it. So it is shitty for him that he has to be the president that's being held up to this standard when there was no standard set before, right? And it's kind of similar to George Bush with 9/11. Like, that was the first time something like that has happened. So you can't hold these things against him because there was no standard. There was no playbook. You know what I mean?
I don't like George Bush's decision at all. I think there was no weapons of mass destruction. He sent him over there.
Well, I'm just saying, same thing, right? Yeah. So like, you got to think of that. But on top of that, I still held the belief that the position as president of the United States means more than just money and jobs and things. It's more than that.
Keep in mind, Trump did not get into presidency to make money. Unlike Joe Biden made millions by being in politics. Trump had no reason to run for president for financial gain.
Yeah, and Trump gave up his presidential salary. Not that to him, there's not that much money, but I mean, he gave that up and he donated it to different branches of government, which I respect.
I'm not saying money as in like money in his pockets. I'm saying
no, I know what you're saying.
To me, the office holds more than just creating jobs and economy.
I think so too.
A certain precedence of, and stop me if I'm too cheesy, but like of honor, of pride, of all kinds of different things that you should be held. And to me, the way Donald Trump acts is not to that standard we have. We had all these like figures. Of course, you don't care because what did you say?
Saying I don't care.
No. I'm saying, what did you say earlier? Mm-hmm. You said the favorite thing about him is he don't give a fuck.
That is my favorite thing about him.
I'll
tell you. That's why I voted.
That's why I disagree. Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, let me go into my view real quick.
He asked me a question. Let me finish, dude. So he's saying all those things, right? So to me, he doesn't fit the bill as someone that should be president who represents the United States of America, the greatest country in the history of the world, right? He doesn't fit that bill. That's another one.
So is it more of like a personality thing? Like, do you think?
Yeah, it's a mixture of personality. It's a mixture of policy. Some of the things he does, I personally just don't agree with. So I can vote how I want. I don't need to change anyone's mind. I don't need to do anything. I don't need to prove why the one is better. All I have to say is this is what I don't like about him, and this is why I disagree with him, or my views don't align with his
So
views.
do you find Donald Trump's flaws significantly bigger than Joe Biden's?
Yes, when it comes to just holding the position of president. Yes.
So all I want to talk about is how Trump carries himself and why I disagree with what you say. Because we've had that smile through the teeth. I'm going to tell you exactly what you want to hear, like politician in the office of the presidency for a long time now. We had that with Bush. We had that with Obama. We had that with Bill Clinton. They weren't trailblazers. They weren't real American presidents, in my opinion. I think, for example, JFK, Reagan, Trump, those guys, to me, those represent real, like what a real president's supposed to look like. But we've just gotten so used to just like your traditional like politician in the office of the presidency that it seems so dramatic that Trump's that way. I think he's a one-man army going up against the establishment and the media, everyone that's all against him. Notice that everyone's always against him. How else is he supposed to act? He's not going to sit there and just take it. He's got
Not everyone's against him. Look back in the early 2000s of Hollywood. Everybody.
Well, they loved him then, yeah, and the rappers loved him then, and the rappers started loving
He
him
helped.
now.
What's his name? Kevin, Home Alone 2.
Oh, well, anyways, let me get back into it. So why I love how that Trump speaks his mind is because that to me is refreshing. That to me is, okay, at least we know where he stands. He's transparent. He's not, doing one thing or saying one thing and then doing another like we got for decades with Obama, Bill Clinton. I like the fact that he doesn't come from politics. People have been saying for years before Trump was the president, we need to get a businessman in there to balance our books. And I think that was exactly what we ended up doing. And I think that's why he got voted in. Was one, because he's a businessman. Two, because he speaks his mind. And three, he's transparent. You don't have to wonder what he's thinking. It's very clear. And I do think he's definitely flamboyant. And I'd say that's a fair argument or a fair thing to say. But to me, that's a positive thing. That's what I'm trying to say. To me and, millions of other Americans, that's why we voted for him. Because to us, that's genuine. And that's what we want to see.
But do you want to touch on that? Because that's something.
Yeah. I will say I totally understand. I just had this conversation yesterday actually about it.
Mm-hmm.
I totally understand where people were coming from in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I am the first one to admit. We've had this conversation. Mm-hmm. I am tired of the same old. I think politicians on both sides are idiots and don't really care about the people and all those things. So I totally get where voters were coming from in 2016 when Trump freaking cleaned house on the Republican nomination side, because people were tired of hearing the same old shit that Jeb Bush and all these people, the same old family, same old people running for president.
Yeah.
People got tired of that. Absolutely. I totally hear that. But all I can say is he's had 4 years or nearly 4 years to sway the other people that didn't vote for him, and he's done absolutely nothing to do that. And
I think he has.
I do want to talk about that.
He only has played to the people who already love him. Now, once again, let's keep it real and keep it going.
I did want to respond because you said that earlier. I did want to respond to that, and I didn't get the opportunity. So can I just quickly say something?
Yeah.
So when it comes to
I was going to give him some credit, but
yeah, no, absolutely. No, so when it comes to unifying the country though, is I think that he has done the best with what he can do. I mean, you got the whole media.
He's not going to win the Progressives.
No matter and also no matter what he says, the media always makes him look bad with it, or the Democrats want to make him look bad. They don't want to let him have a victory. So that's why I think he's doing the best he can. I don't think it's his fault that the country's divided. I think the media is more to blame for the fact that they make everything that he does seem bad, and then they make all his supporters look bad, and then they just radicalize the left more and more. And I think that it's unfair that there has to be some common ground that they come to. And I think that he's been trying to negotiate, trying to get to, on the same side as Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. I don't think Trump is the guy to blame. I don't think Trump's the guy to blame.
I think the coronavirus has really woken people up to I didn't know who Nancy Pelosi was or Mitch McConnell or any of these people were until the COVID happened. And then I'm like, okay, when's this next relief package? I'm unemployed, Granted, I got it a lot easier. I can only imagine, okay, let's say my friend Lucas and I moved to LA. COVID hit. We're out of work. We get the first stimulus. We get the unemployment. Now it's over. Okay, where's our next relief coming from? Especially
your
in LA.
unemployment isn't going to stop. But
and another point,
unemployment has the enhanced unemployment.
COVID, the CARES Act stuff stopped. And obviously we haven't gotten another
now
stimulus.
They were talking about how Nancy Pelosi recently talked about, we made tremendous strides and everything. Recently came out. They talk an hour every day, and they haven't got much done with the second stimulus bill. And I think with it being so close to the election, that was a purposeful thing. At first, Nancy Pelosi, they need to be negotiators, and something that I think they're both
find
guilty
common
of
ground. Yep.
is, Republicans in particular, they've been going up and down a lot. Nancy Pelosi's been it's $2.2 trillion or nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
there has to be negotiation.
Your job is to negotiate, not to. Now, granted, I do think Trump was he's been off and on about stimulus as well. He's we're going to have stimulus after the election once I'm president. And then he's I'll sign something if they come up with something. So he's been back and forth on that as well. But I do think that there is a certain level of, we don't want to give Trump this victory of getting stimulus out. And I do think someone brought up a good point of, I don't think stimulus is going to happen until after the election, because Trump's not going to sign something if Joe Biden wins to enhance Joe Biden's economy. You know, like at this point, if they pass another stimulus package, the money's not going to get in your hands until after the election, regardless. So
Yeah.
So Trump's not going to sign something that's going to benefit Joe Biden.
It is ridiculous how long this has been stalled because they just can't. It's bad leadership on both ends. There's no one to blame. I mean,
yeah.
The
I'm not
Democrats, the Republicans,
stupid ass Nancy Pelosi, and
it is,
and
yeah,
stupid ass Mitch McConnell.
And I think a lot of people woke up because people like me didn't know who these people were, and then now we're seeing them, and they're like, okay,
yeah, but people who are in the, I don't know how into politics Matt was before, but
I was more
something,
than I am
okay,
now,
but
I'd say.
something I want to ask you in particular is, for me, 2016 happened when I was in high school. I was only 16 years old when it happened. Was politics ever this divided and like mainstream throughout your life? Like, I feel
2016 wasn't as divided as it is today. 2016, everyone was thinking, oh yeah, because every poll, every news outlet was saying Hillary's going to win. Yeah. So nobody was like, no one was being torn apart or torn, like families weren't divided as they were saying, like it is today.
Well, that's what happens when the left doesn't get their way. They get really upset.
Corona, with Black Lives Matter, with and mixture of the kind of like Me Too stuff coming in the tail end of Obama's era and things like that. Like all that stuff has created the scenario we're in now in 2020, where everything is so divided.
And my question
2016 wasn't like that.
Well, in particular, what I'm asking, has politics ever been this mainstream? You see it in Hollywood. You see it, politics everywhere. Now it seems like everybody has an opinion.
No, it's been like that. If you were around during Obama's first run in office, I know you were around, but you were 8 years old.
Well, that's why I asked this question.
People were talking about it then. When I was in high school, people were talking about it then. When I first voted when I was 18, it was George Bush's second term. Like everyone was talking about it then.
I would say that's true, but there's absolutely more interest in it now, I'd say. Especially amongst young people. Young people are more involved now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I ask that because like when you bring up Obama and stuff, like, yeah, I was alive, but like politics in my world, like I barely ever heard about it. Yeah. Now it seems like kids, they know who Donald Trump is.
Oh, dude, I had this conversation at the University of Washington. Like, I straight up said, because some of the people are like,
flex.
They were asking, no,
that was a subtle flex.
No, they were asking all of us, like, introductions. What do you want to do? What's your major? What do you want to do? And I kid you not, a lot of these, what is the generation, Zers or Gen Zers right now? A lot of them, like
social work.
Not even social work is an actual like field. Like that is a
lesbian
job.
Dance theory.
No, they were saying, "Oh, my major is this, but I probably just want to be an activist." What does that even mean? What is an activist? What job is that? Most
do you want to get paid?
Hey, I want to be a teacher, or I want to be an engineer, or I want to be, a microbiologist, whatever it is. No, they're answering, I want to be something with social justice or an activist. What does that even mean, right?
Well, I do want to segue into nothing.
Wait. We all need to go around and say our pronouns.
But what I'm getting at, just real quick to answer his question before you start, the heightened idea of what politics are is different today than it was in years past. But I think it's mostly because of people and kids are witnessing, this person can make a living being an activist because of social media. They can make money. So that's what I want to do.
AOC,
and that's how I think how it's changed is technology, and that has changed what politics are, because now we can be sitting in Puyallup, Washington, and reach the world, right? We can reach the corners of our countries that we would never before, and now we can make money. If you have enough followers and enough influence, you can make money, and I think that's what's changed politics.
I did want to talk about because you brought up UW, and then you brought up like all that, like education, thing like that. I wanted to talk about like what you are doing at UW and what you wanted to pursue and things like that, because you brought up how they all want to be activists, and you were having this conversation. So what is Buddy doing? Because I know you wanted to be in education last I checked, but then before that I checked, you wanted to be in politics.
Well, I've always been interested in politics. I can't imagine that I wouldn't someday run for some kind of office, but I think my career, to me, I don't see that the difference of generations. I don't see that as a career. I see that as a civic duty that you that you give your time to serve your community.
It's not supposed to be
The career I pursue is education. I want to educate young people. I want to be involved with creating a base of educated young people for when I'm old, they take the reins, helping the next generation of humans and Americans going forward. And
I think that's
my
important.
goal.
Local politics, of which people don't give a lot of credit to. And I think a lot of
And
people
they're
hold
dumb for that.
A lot of people hold this weight to the presidency or like these people in high power of, oh, we need to elect this person because they're going to clean our streets. It's like,
that's
no,
ridiculous.
you got to look locally.
We got to start with yourself, and
Yeah.
then you got to do it with your vote.
That's absolutely. Well, when we're getting down into real interpersonal stuff, I mean, of course, it starts.
In your own
Everything
home.
starts in the home.
Yeah, don't expect your community
People
cleanup
can
if you can't
talk
clean up.
about all these things. We can talk about the judicial system. We can talk about racism. We can talk about feminism. We can talk about anything. But if it's not starting in your home, it's not going to go anywhere else from there. If you're not teaching your children to be respectable and decent human beings, then you're starting behind the line. No change is going to enact. And it's just like that. People don't care about local politics because it doesn't have the flash. It doesn't
Exactly.
have the
That's right.
panaz, the celebrity behind it, right? But those are the people that actually make a difference in your life. Those council members, those school board members, all those people, those are the people that are making changes that you're going to see. Who the president is, obviously,
Makes some
comes
difference.
to a degree, but how is that ever going to change your day-to-day life, everyday life, walking in your neighborhoods, in your communities? It's not. You got to vote locally. I've always voted locally ever since I was 18. But once again, it started from the home. My parents were educated. My parents were involved in politics, local politics, and things like that. So like I was raised with that kind of
Background.
atmosphere, that background. So once again, it starts at home. You got to teach your kids to be aware and go from there.
Okay, I want to transition. Matt, do you have something to say?
No.
Okay.
I'm good.
The media in particular, I think you see a big difference. And there's a good argument of like people who solely watch like CNN and people who solely watch Fox News. They're living in two different realities in life.
True.
It's like two parallel different universes that they're living in. And something that I noticed is that a lot of stuff that like Bill Clinton, for example, with Epstein girl like rubbing his back and stuff, I didn't see that really covered nearly as big if like let's say if it was Trump in that sitting right there and that Epstein girl rubbing his back.
You wouldn't hear anything else for a while.
Well, because Bill Clinton's not the president anymore. That's probably why. But I totally get what you're saying.
And then that same day though, he talked at the DNC and no one brought it up. No one asked him about it. And you also see with I don't remember the names, but like the black guy who like shot the white 5-year-old kid. No mainstream
terrible.
media covered that for
right.
like 3
remember.
whole days. And not only that, but you see a lot of cases like there was a guy in Portland who ran over a protester. They didn't show the article I was reading. I think it was on CNN or something. They didn't show his picture. If you looked up his name and you saw who it was a black man. And in the same situation with the black guy shooting the white 5-year-old kid. When I was reading the article, I did not see his picture. And like the Daily Wire, it showed him and all this other stuff.
Because that doesn't foment riots and race war. Essentially, they want first of all what's going to get them clicks, and then two, I mean, everything they say, it's always negative against white people because that's what gets people first of all talking. But then it also radicalizes people and creates riots and things like that. So for whatever reason, that's what they choose to go with. I choose just to not blame it on the race, but blame it on the individual. I think that's a healthier way to do it.
Something that I saw about George Floyd.
Unless it's race based. I mean,
course, yeah,
we
I'm
can
not
be
saying-
fair and say, okay, this known white supremacist killed this person. We can and that person was a person of color. We can
Yeah.
probably fairly say it was racially.
Well, yeah,
motivated.
like if a
But
KKK,
yes,
of course,
a random.
But of course, I'm talking about something else. Yeah.
who's then yes, blame the individual for
Yeah.
sure. I totally get that.
Yeah, I'm not talking about like George Floyd and that kind of situation.
Yeah.
I'm talking about your normal, everyday, crime or violence, things like that.
Sad that we have to say normal.
But even then,
Crime's bad
Yeah.
general, which shouldn't be normal. But.
Even then, though, I mean, of course, now if it's race-based, that's different, like
Yeah,
you said.
yeah.
But, I mean, why does it have to be this white person and then kill
Well,
this
yeah,
black person?
I mean-
it doesn't have to be. It's not always race, related.
Before my generation, so the generation before me, and maybe 2 generations before me, or let's say my mom, right, who grew up in the 70s, late 60s into the 70s, news was news. Walter Cronkite sat behind a desk and literally read the news. That's it. There was no entertainment section. There was none of this. I
Now
think
you got comedians on night shows.
no, and that's the thing. Well, now
SNL.
you have anchors, right, who aren't even journalists. They're just good-looking people. We need the best-looking people.
Not Brian Stelter.
Well, I'm saying the females. I'm saying it used to, Walter Cronkite was a trained journalist.
That's true, yeah.
He was a educationally trained, taught journalist. He knew what he was talking about. He knew the integrity of being a journalist and what was real and finding out facts and presenting the facts to the American people.
They're
That was the point.
entertainers now, yeah.
It's when
Bad
that
actors.
transition, that news
Terrible
became entertainment, is when we started going downhill. And 2020 is, I think, the epicenter or the precipice of how terrible news can get. Just like you said, people who only watch Fox News are going to hear an entirely different story and see an entirely different world than people who only watch liberal CNN, right? Or whatever liberal media outlet there is. So there's the problem. Even though they're talking about the same stories, they're seeing a totally different world. And it's a disservice to the American people that it's that way. But once again, we've talked about it before. We have to do it ourselves, unfortunately. We have to look at both and make an assessment or find some of those outlets that are in the middle. I like NPR, National Public Radio, because it is seen as moderate. It just gives you the facts. It doesn't
Personally,
say,
I'm an Infowars guy.
yeah, I wouldn't say so.
I do like
so
Infowars,
that's-
though.
But you know what I mean? You got to find your
yeah, I love
niche. You have to find the information yourself, sadly.
You
You
gotta go
can't
both
just
sides.
you can't just rely on Tucker Carlson and you can't just rely on Rachel Maddow, right? You can't just rely on those people.
I think something you brought up in your last podcast that was a really good statement, good point, was the like what is the consequence of too much information. I think that one of those consequences with technology growing too is I think social media is partially to blame, and alongside
absolutely.
the mainstream media, because you have these outlets, somebody that is conservative, they're gonna choose to watch Fox News. They don't want to hear the other side because it just gets them mad or whatever, and also because they disagree with it. So people are just choosing these outlets that confirm their own worldview, but not going and then trying to find the other side. And then social media makes it worse because then social media, they're able to basically identify where your interests are, and then in your discover, your feed, whatever, it shows you what you want to see.
Right.
So it doesn't give you both sides. So you're stuck in that echo chamber, and then it creates that's what creates the radicalization on the left and the right.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
where that comes from. I mean, really, there's got to be something we can do where it's more fair. And I just think the biggest problem today, especially with division, is or with the divide, is that people just don't want to hear the other side. They don't want to listen.
I think
It's
that's
just
more
they shut
prominent
it
on the
down.
left.
Uh-huh.
Because I feel like when it comes
Well,
to
when
it comes to us in particular, we never made a fuss about when left-leaning people spoke at Pierce. But if we got Ben Shapiro to speak at Pierce College,
That's
I mean,
true. They
if
kick the
we're-
door down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with that, but that's also like you got to think of context. Like Ben Shapiro is a known right
Nazi, no kidding.
person,
Yeah.
so of course he's gonna have more of a thing. But if we had we
Matthew J.
we
Walker.
had Senator Zeiger speak at the school. Not that any students.
Is that left leaning?
went. No, he's right wing. He's a Republican right wing person from Puyallup. He's a local politician, right? Like no one came and protested him. It's all about the person.
Yeah.
It's all about the entertainment side. What's in their feed, right? Like
That's a bit. That's a
Ben
good point.
Shapiro is known across the board as this
Famous.
famous. He has absolutely no control over any kind of seat in government. He has no. He doesn't represent anybody but himself. But everyone knows him as this. Whereas Hans Zeiger, who's to me a not radical, but he's right leaning. He's a conservative Republican from Puyallup, from this district, who represents in the Senate. Hey, no one came to protest him, even though he might share the same beliefs as Ben Shapiro. I don't know if he does or not. I'm just saying he might, but no one gave a shit. It's all about what is getting clicks, is what is entertaining. What's the latest thing? Like for me, what's the latest thing we need to jump on? It was Black Lives Matter, just months ago, and that was going really strong. Now that's kind of died off. Now everyone in my feed is talking about things going on in Africa and Nigeria and all these atrocities happening there, which is fair to talk about, but that's just the latest thing.
Yeah, that's through the news cycle.
Did you ever witness the verses of Black Lives Matter and Save the Children? I had someone on my Facebook feed share this thing.
I wanted to say something about like Ben Shapiro coming to campuses and things like that as well. So the way I view it though is that Ben Shapiro, it doesn't matter if it's Ben Shapiro, if it's a left-leaning person, let's say like Cenk Uygur came to Pierce College, and then right-wing people started kicking down the door, started creating big commotion. It's one thing to like have a heckler or something, that's totally normal, and totally, I'd say it's fine if they have legitimate questions that are kind of a heckler, that's okay. But if you're making a commotion, you're beating on the door, you're protesting, you got
start a riot because Milo Yiannopoulos is speaking at your campus.
Yeah, once you start freaking out like that, or you have a section of the student base, or just left or right leaning people, and then let's say in this case it's a Ben Shapiro comes and the left leaning people start kicking the door down, start freaking out, I'd say those people are in the wrong. I mean, because Ben Shapiro comes to speak, these people are creating commotion, that should be denounced. I mean, that should be socially accepted, that it's wrong to not let someone speak their mind and then to freak out when they come on campus, call them Nazi or racist, bigots, things like this that aren't true simply because you disagree with them. That's where the divide is there, is that people got to just start realizing that we're all humans. Like most of us aren't, super racists. Most of us aren't, bad people. Just because we have a different point of view than the other guy or than you do doesn't mean that we can't find common ground, or doesn't mean that we can't still be friends. It's just, at the end of the day, it's just politics. It's not.
Well, if we're getting down to the brass tacks of it, it's our First Amendment right. You can't stop the, obviously, for like what's his name, Indianapolis or Milo Yiannopoulos, there was a group of students who asked him to go to UC Berkeley. They asked him. They invited. He didn't just decide and go book a venue saying, "Hey, I'm doing my event here." He was asked to come speak by a group of students, to speak for whatever he speaks on. I mean, he was a Breitbart editor or whatever he was. I don't know what he is.
He's gay.
Yeah, whatever, right? Like that's the whole point. And for anyone to say that the answer to that is to shut him up is against the Constitution. The Constitution protects the right.
Well, they don't like the Constitution, these radical leftists.
Whatever we want to say, whether you like it or not. And to stop that, especially in state institutions like UC Berkeley, like if the scenario was Pierce College. Pierce College is a state institution. The state has to uphold the Constitution. Now, if it's a private place, if it's this and that changes the story.
So do you agree with Trump's executive action to protect the First Amendment on college campuses?
Absolutely.
All right.
I don't think censorship is the answer to quote unquote hate speech. More free speech is the answer. If this person is, let's just use the KKK. I think we can agree that we don't like the KKK, right?
I don't know about that.
We don't we don't agree with their views. The answer isn't to shut when we see that they have a scheduled event in downtown Puyallup. The answer isn't to go to the city and say, you need to stop these people from doing this. No, they have the right to do that because they're Americans, whether their ideas are stupid to us or we disagree with them, whatever. But all that means is, hey, we're going to organize our own group to go down there and say, we disagree with these people. It's not an American ideal to be racist. It's not what it means to be an American to be racist. And we're going to organize and use our free speech to combat their free speech. Nowhere in there means that person should shut up.
Yeah.
They have the right as Americans to say what they want. Now, with that said, we can limit those kinds of things when
calls of violence.
When it's, yeah, of course, calls of violence. Yeah, the classic yelling fire in a movie theater, like there's limits to that. But what I'm saying by limits is private entities have the right to determine what's on their platform. So when we're talking about free speech, we have to bring in, because it's relevant, the whole YouTube censorship, the whole thing. Conservatives are always mad about being censored on this. Well, that business is a private entity who can determine who they want on their thing. What they can't do is stop you from going down to your street corner and utilizing your First Amendment right to say what you want. But they can limit you to what content is on their platform.
Yeah, actually, I do want to argue that. And you know, from a conservative point of view, I mean, you know, it's weird for me to argue that, right? But the reason for that is because they're not it's like the publisher platform, the difference there. So they are acting as one of the, have you heard this argument? So do you understand it?
Yeah.
Yeah, like with I'd have to it's been a while since I've looked into it, but so they're acting as a publisher, right? No, what is it? What's the difference between the platform and the publisher? Will you remind me of that?
I don't know specifically. I know I've heard the point. What you're saying is because this is it kind of goes on what's the norm, right? Like YouTube right in today's time is the way people get news out. So they have to be held to a different standard. But even then it is still argued because YouTube is a private corporation.
It's Section 230 of the Sherman Antitrust Act. That's what they're looking into, because I mean, legally they're actually doing something that does overstep their right as a corporation. It's not that they don't have the right, but it's they would have to go. I can't remember which it is, either the platform or the publisher. But I guess they're acting as the public square right now, so they don't have the privilege of censorship. So they'd have to go and become publishers or something like that, and then I'd have to look more into it. I hate that I'm not clear on it, but anyway, so I mean that's the argument there, you know, with that.
Right.
So I don't think
all I'm saying is that's still debatable. Like that's what I mean by in today's time, YouTube is the public square. Like it is your street corner.
That's why it shouldn't be allowed to
That's
be
the
censored.
argument, but there is no real legislation completely supports it. It's still arguable. So all I'm saying is I'm going off of what it is. A private entity. It's just like a business today. No shirt, no shoes, no service is a common saying. You know, like
no right wing, no conservative talk.
Yeah, you have certain rights as a business, as a company, to say I want to do this or I want to do that.
Yeah, until the law steps in. You're saying until that Sherman Antitrust.
Right, until they classify it. It's like, okay, legislation is now going to classify this platform as this space where you cannot use censorship as something that you use to get someone off.
I do think
platform.
that's coming down the pipe too. I think that eventually will come.
And
I don't think it's fair.
If it gets to that point, I would agree.
I also think it's really it's kind of twisted on the side of the company that they have like shadow banning, these like kind of hidden algorithms that are censoring people.
You ever hear about the
that's
Facebook
weird.
profile? Like the ghost, even if you don't have a Facebook profile, they have like a profile for you.
Yeah, that's really weird.
Where it's like, if I have Matthew J. Walker in my phone and I connect my phone to Facebook, now they have all my contacts and stuff. They have a little profile for Matthew J. Walker, and they find other people who have that type of his number, his...
Well, social media is scary, especially things like Facebook, because think about how much power that gives. First of all, that company, and then the government, because they have everything you do, your like status updates.
Facebook knows when you poop,
where you've been, and then it has all your friends, everyone you know, alphabetized. It's just, to me, it's eerie as it is. I don't really like social media. I mean, everybody has it, but I just think social media. Another thing I've noticed with social media, this is something I brought up to someone recently, is I feel like it's hurt our ability to actually communicate. I think that's one of the...
There's the wall there. If you can comment on someone else's opinion and have no fear of like...
And like talk all that smack.
Face-to-face
and it creates keyboard warriors. But then, face-to-face, you talk to that person, you wouldn't treat them that disrespectfully.
No, and see, that's the thing I hear often with people of my generation and older, like, oh, these... kids these days are so sensitive and blah blah blah, and it's like, okay, well, you have to think, when I was a young kid and I got bullied at school, because everyone goes through that kind of scenario, and kids, dude, middle schoolers are vicious animals.
They are.
They cut deep, like
elementary too. Shit.
Elementary, kids in general,
they don't have the filter.
They just cut deep, right? We all go through that. But when I was young, and people who were generations before me, once you went home, it was over. You didn't have to deal with Johnny making fun of you.
That's true. That's a good. I never thought about that way.
The kids today, and in the last 20 years, they get it at school. They go home. They're on the computer. They're getting it on the internet. It never ends. So you have to understand, like, social media has created this heightened thing where, yes, the core of it, or I guess the heart of it, is to bring people together, but it's totally dilapidating what social norms and all kinds of things are. And today, these kids these days have no clue how to talk to anybody.
I do think
Have
it's really
no idea how to
then you wonder
approach somebody and just have a conversation.
And then you look at like rising mental health issues like depression,
Absolutely.
anxiety. It's absolutely linked to that.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to be funny to see the president of our generation who grew up with Facebook, Twitter,
their entire life.
Yeah. What are they going to post when they're in middle school, you know, and going to come back up?
Come out.
No,
yeah.
no, for sure. Because, like, for me,
Gosh,
you know,
I think about some of the cringy things I did in the past. Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
yeah,
I
dude,
hope that shit
absolutely.
never gets pulled
for
out.
me, social media didn't start until I was 18. You know, like I was older already. You know, like there was no social media when I was in middle school. There was no social media when I was in high school, and so, like you said, I'm only 35. Like we still have like maybe one more president or another one to where potentially it could be a person that has had social media their entire life.
Yeah, they're
since they've
posting
been
like
born,
like
you
rap
know?
lyrics and shit.
Like their top 8 is what they used to do on MySpace back in the day. You could
Oh,
choose
gosh, I
who
remember
your
that.
top people were, and so like people are gonna, oh, you had such and such like radical person as your top 8. Why did you have that? All kinds of different things.
I forgot
Social
about
media
MySpace.
has completely changed society. Did you guys watch The Social
I never
Dilemma?
watched it. I've heard it's really good
Oh
though.
my god, it's so good. It's on Netflix. The
I'm not a
Social
big...
Dilemma.
I don't know what it is. I'm a huge proponent of physical media, so it's so hard for me to watch something on Netflix. I do watch a lot of stand-up comedy on Netflix. That's the only
If
thing I
you
watch. Matt watched Cuties.
watch that.
I did not watch Cuties,
Oh,
folks.
that thing. Don't even bring that up.
Oh, it's
Or we
disgusting.
could talk about it, but
Yeah,
it's
I don't wanna
crazy.
talk
I feel like
about
it's a mutual...
So that's the one part I don't like getting into. Like when you get into the conspiracy world, you start getting into like the fighting
pedophilia.
about the pedophilia.
Hillary
all
Clinton
there.
drinking...
Kid blood or whatever. Yeah, you get into all this crap. I'm not even saying that's just true. I'm just saying you get into it and you're going down a rabbit hole you don't want to get. Even if it's some of it's true, even if it's like you need to know this stuff, you don't want to.
Did you guys watch the Jeffrey Epstein?
I just don't want to let that
documentary?
shit
I
into my
did.
psyche. You know what I mean? Like into my reality, into my consciousness.
No, I
Jeffrey
hear
Epstein
you.
thing was like, it was so unbelievable to me because there's like so much stuff that happens. I'm like, that's the kind of thing you hear like dramatized in a movie, like the people standing out front of her, like in the car out front of her house taking pictures of her, and you see the flashes of light through the house, and I'm just like, that's like from a horror movie or something. I'm like, I can't imagine being in that kind of
I wanted to
stuff.
get back to one thing about the social media. This is something, the reason I brought this up to the person I was talking to is because it was my sister. I was talking to my sister about it. And I said, like, one thing I've noticed is when I was younger, I would have like really like raw, like genuine, like vulnerable moments with my friends, people I cared about. And like where we really felt like we bonded, like where I really felt like I made a friend that day from having this communication. And that's something I found to be like rare, like non-existent in my
You put people in your circle who agree with you, and then you feel that self-gratification of like,
Well,
Well,
my
the
sister was
term
making
friend
the point.
has completely changed today than it was 20 years ago, right? Friends were like what you just mentioned. Friends were someone you had a connection with, conversation with physically, and you know, not physical together, but I mean in person, face to face, where you had this connection. Now the term friend is like, oh yeah, we send messages to each other from time to time.
Yeah.
I comment on their stories on Instagram. To now that's your friend, right? And so
That's something I like. The reason I brought it up to her because I was talking to her about it, and I was like, that's something I kind of like miss. I miss having that connection to people or feeling like I did. So I felt like there's something wrong with me. But then she brought it up, and she was like, well, I think it's social media. She's like, I think that it's kind of changed the way we communicate now. So that's why it feels so different. It feels like you're not getting that connection because you're really not, because you can't do it from behind the screen. And the thing is I think that also goes into the social distancing, the 6 feet thing. I think that 6 feet is like that like, I don't know, like that space you have to be in to build that real connection. Because I believe in like supernatural. I believe in God. I'm
Clockwork
kind of a
Elves.
spiritual person. Clockwork Elves.
I got one
No, I'm kidding.
upstairs. Let's go. Let's go interview
No,
him.
but I believe in all that. So I believe that there is like an actual, when you're building that connection with someone, there's something real there that's not quantifiable. But so I think that 6 foot rule with the mask, you can't identify who you're talking to. I mean, you have the eyes, and the eyes are the window of the soul. You could argue, I guess, but then you have that 6 feet or more than 6 feet distance. You're not able to really build that connection. So I think that adds to it now as well. So if we keep that going, then it's going to be more negative,
Well,
more
I mean,
suicide.
I
We can
don't-
safely
depression.
agree that there would be no Nicholas Sparks movies if there was 6 feet with a mask.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree with you what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree with you what you're saying about the coronavirus. To me, I still see it as a temporary thing. So it doesn't.
Yeah, me
I don't
too,
really
yeah.
register it as like, oh,
It's gonna
that
be
6
forever.
feet's gonna be whatever. I mean, I think that's gonna go away eventually.
I
So
really liked. Oh, you can finish what you're saying.
I'm just saying, I totally get what you're saying on. As humans, we need that connection, and we're lacking. This generation, and maybe even the generation before it, is lacking what that is.
Or we lost it. We stopped communicating.
We've lost
that
it,
way.
and that's how we stop caring about each other. Because if we're sitting behind a computer, we can say anything and do anything to hurt somebody without seeing the ramifications of it, without feeling what you're doing, and we're losing that insight to connecting to other human beings. I totally agree.
Do you think it's going to come back? Do you think that we're going to, or do you think that social media is just going to continue to be the way that we communicate and texting? And
I think it's only going to get worse. I feel like they're so big that it's like.
It's just we're so
Well,
like
I'm not
ingrained
completely
into it.
hopeless. Like I'm
me
an
neither.
optimistic about it. I think if we make strides as a society, and obviously seeing now that we have data behind what social media has done to young people and things, now we have stuff that says, whoa, like this does heighten depression, this does heighten mental illness and all these things.
I think it's
now
becoming
we're
more
gonna
known.
start, now that it is becoming more known, we're going to start stepping back and saying, okay, maybe we need to tone this down.
Yeah.
In our, once again, in our homes,
Yeah.
starting with us, starting with our children, and then eventually taking it.
Have you guys thought
Another
about?
example, I want to bring up one thing. Another example is I heard a story. Someone I knew, they had a friend who worked with a kid who was like, he worked in, it was retail, so that he was selling clothing, things like that, and doing customer service.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't go out onto the floor. He would just like run into the back and then just find something to do back there because he had such crippling anxiety. And I think the social media is probably a symptom of that as well, because he's so used to communicating behind this that when he has to have a raw interaction with somebody in person, he's like, just the social anxiety is overwhelming. You can't do it.
And I've had this,
And that hurts you professionally. Like you can't
Absolutely.
succeed if that's the way you are. And I know because when I was younger, I had like kind of more of a victim mentality, and I had to develop that more like have to take accountability for myself.
Boo-hoo, the
mentality that I
poor
have
cis
now.
white male who's Christian also. Oh my god.
Well, I wasn't always Christian, but anyways, so I had that. I also was diagnosed with anxiety when I was like 17. I got thrown on, or 16 or 17, got thrown on a bunch of drugs and crap like that, and I thought that was the solution, not knowing. And this is why I think that it's overdiagnosed, depression, anxiety, because they hear the symptoms, but they never tell the kids like, oh, like, have you ever decided, like you said, to go exercise? Or to
Yeah,
go
Buddy and I
try
talked
to-
about like how this generation is just like, if you're a kid in kindergarten, you're just can't sit down. You're too like active.
See, I
Let's
don't
just
think-
throw them on. Let's
I
just
think
throw
in
them on
some,
pills.
yeah, I think in some, in certainly many instances, somebody actually does have a mental health problem, and maybe they should be on drugs. But other people, a lot of times, it's just like they have their own, like they don't feel like they don't believe in themselves. They don't have a lot of confidence yet. That's not an issue that you need to throw them on drugs for. It's something they have to develop, and something like another thing is having a hobby or just having something that makes you feel like you have a purpose and that you're succeeding and you're accomplishing something. So even if that thing's like Jordan Peterson says, make your bed every day, it kind of sets the rest of your day up for success. If you're
get
doing
up and take
little-
a shower.
Yeah,
Get up,
anything,
take
yeah.
a shower, and get dressed. Whether
Make it
you have
small.
plans or you don't.
It doesn't
Just
mean-
doing that alone.
What?
It
Funny
doesn't
you say
mean
that.
you
It's
wake
funny
up a
you say
millionaire
that.
the next day. It means like just little things, and that makes you happier.
Because when I was dying from mono, I made sure to just keep my routine, like the hygiene side,
That's smart.
completely just the same, because I knew that if I just laid in bed all day, I would just feel even more.
But did you stop making out with randos?
I've never kissed a girl since.
another thing is that's kind of how I think I got through like the COVID thing, the lockdown, because I got furloughed almost immediately when it first happened.
And you got 600 a week. It was
Yeah,
amazing.
but I didn't. It was fucking great. But I didn't. But the thing is I didn't.
Socialism.
Yeah, well, let me explain. So I didn't I'd say for a week or so, I kind of sulked around. I was like upset about it, but I also kind of lived up the fact I didn't have to work. But then after that, like I'm like a very motivated, very ambitious person. So I like to feel like I have something going on. If I don't, then I get really down on myself and I just feel like crap. And I'm a super hard self-critic as it is. So I had to like keep myself occupied. So that's when I started doing the insurance thing. And then when I went back, and the biggest thing was when I went back after I got taken out of furlough and I went back to work for Super Subs. I was working there for a while. I was walking around and I was like, I was making $600 a week sitting on my, not doing much, getting it off unemployment. I still found things
And then
to
Matt
make me
shaved
feel
his head
alive.
and dyed it blue.
No,
And
no,
like
but
abolished capitalism.
oh my gosh. Anyways, so when I was working there, I was like, man, like I can't go back to making chump change anymore. Like I just can't do it. So I got super, I started looking at I started applying for jobs. Then I saw an Allstate offer. And I was like, I'm going to do it even though I don't think I'm going to get it. I didn't think I was going to get a hit back, but I was like, I'm going to try it anyways just to see because the money was, was really good, looked really good. And then they called me and they're like, okay, well, you need to get your insurance license, you need to do this and that, but you're hired. Just get that done, in the next 2 weeks. Because they're like, you're a studious guy, you're in college, you can do it. It took a lot longer than that. And then the job ended up falling through. But then here's the way the world works, universe works, getting into the spiritual side of things that I believe is that job fell through, but then I got so I was really upset when that job fell through because I was like, damn, that was a really good opportunity. Now I got to tell my boss hey, I don't want to put in my 2 weeks anymore. So I ended up having to do that to my boss that I already had put in my 2 weeks. It was really awkward, but she's really cool. She's my boss, Mimi. She loved me to death. So she was like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to hear that. But anyway, so.
And then you put it back in?
But listen to this. So that opportunity fell through. So I was a little bummed about it, but I was like, what? Another one will come down the road. And then a couple weeks went by. I was like, and this way I can take my time to get my license and do all that. Mm-hmm. So then I think a week or two went by, and then I got 2 more offers, both of which were way better than the original one. So the 2 offers, that's why, that's the way I view the universe is a door closes, but then many more open. You just have to allow them
I
to.
talked about it with my grandpa a bit. What signifies to you that was a religious thing and per se, Buddy, same thing could happen to him. And
well,
he's
Buddy's
not
in my view, Buddy isn't a total atheist either. You're kind of an
No,
agnostic.
I'm not an atheist at all.
You believe there's possibly something. You're not sure.
It's all relative to me. You say God, I say universe.
I say the universe too.
You people are. I say you. I mean Christians, right?
Yeah.
Christians say power of prayer, and I say positive energy. I'm giving
manifestation.
You I'm gonna put it out in the world so it's in our mind, just like your self-help, not self-help, but your self-empowerment stuff. You got to put it out there. You got to dress the part, right? If you want it, you have to do it. That's what I believe. What I don't believe is certain things that a book that was written 3,000 years ago by a bunch of white dudes,
Actually, I think they're Muslim. Well, they were that. Middle
maybe
Eastern.
The original, but how many times has it been translated and transformed? Translated and transformed, right? So powers that be created this book. That's the part I don't buy into. I don't buy into that. And to me, religion is just another thing that divides people. Whereas if I just say, hey, we're a part of this world, we have a connection to each other being human beings. I can think and manifest my energy to you and think positively for you and hope everything works great. But ultimately, I believe our lives are compiled of decisions and outcomes, and you just have to make the best decisions for yourself to get the best outcomes.
I agree with that. Yeah.
To me,
absolutely,
you putting it into the system, Allstate is circulating your transcript or your resume and looking at.
Well, I do want to correct one thing
stuff,
too from your podcast. I actually am still in college, for the record, so I just take one class. I'm taking one class, but I am still doing that only because I want to get my associates. Who knows how long that'll go for though? Because right now I'm trying to get my life license at the same time. So I'm doing college, life license, and then working full time. So I work full time and do the college thing.
See, if it was just socialism, you wouldn't have to do that.
Right?
See, but to me, I would feel so. The thing is, if I sat on my ass all day,
keep sitting on your ass.
If I sat on my ass all day, and I have been in that position where I have been, I have done that. I've been, unemployed or whatever happened. I did that, and I just feel so unfulfilled. I feel like crap. And then when I start working all the time and I get back into the groove and I have a routine, I feel way better, and I just like who I am better.
Let me put this out there.
It does something for you. Is what I'm trying to say.
The whole time during this lockdown, I've never reached level 100 on Fortnite. During the lockdown, I've reached level 100 twice.
Okay, I respect that. No, but anyways, what was I gonna say? So
I'm not saying that's a good thing.
Going back to what you were saying, and I'm not disagreeing with it at all. Personally, no, I wouldn't identify. I like to identify with a religion, so I'm not like your traditional Christian. I go to church every Sunday, that kind of thing. Not that there's anything wrong with that either. I mean, I support those people. They can do whatever they want. But I definitely interpret the Bible and many parts of it a lot differently. And I don't view everything as hardcore truth, fact, whatever. I'm not saying it's wrong. I think there's a lot of things in there that are just it's teaching you morality. It's teaching you this. Not saying you have to get it from the Bible. I'm just saying that it has a purpose. You don't look to don't crack the Bible open looking for science. You crack it open looking for how to teach you how to be and how to live your life.
I go off of it just like I go off of, any self-empowerment book. I mean,
There's a lot
I
of
know
good
that's
stuff
kind
in
of
there.
offensive to Christians to say that,
to me, but-
to me, reading the Bible is a good way to get some life things. You know, Jesus in the Bible had some really good life lessons for people to take, and if you can use those lessons to make you a better person in the world, all power to you. I draw the line when you're saying this person is condemned for not believing what I believe in. That's where I draw the line.
That's
I don't
dangerous.
care about religion. I don't care what you believe in or whatever, but don't tell me
How to live
that
your
I'm going to be going to hell or that I'm condemned for not believing the same thing you believe in.
Let's do a mini poll. Who's more
Real quick.
famous, Jesus Christ or Trump?
Jesus Christ.
Did
Yeah.
you see that video of him?
I did, but I do want to say one thing about that. So that being said, with what I said about religion and when I believe in things like that, you know, I do refer to things like God, like the universe. I call God the universe many times, and that's what I'm referring to. So I do believe in, to set the record straight, I do believe in God. I do believe in Jesus. That being said, I don't believe in everything the Bible says. I don't think that, for example, I don't think Adam and Eve, for example, can be or should be interpreted super literally. It should be interpreted. Or maybe it's an allegory, so maybe it's telling you the story, but in a very simplified way. So I was explaining to you.
Yeah, I
earlier.
mean, it doesn't need to be interpreted at all. You could just read it and be like, okay,
Cool story.
that's the story that they taught themselves years and years ago, right? The book of Genesis is this story of how these people thought the earth and universe were created, and that's great. That's all I'm saying.
No,
I'm
I
not-
understand.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying, you know, like, I'm not trying
you're
to
bad
shit
as a
on
Christian.
anybody
Yeah.
for being religious. If being religious makes you a better person in the world, then please do it. I know plenty of people that tell me, and just like what your grandfather was
But you
saying,
don't
like,
have to have it.
hey, I was this terrible person. I was making terrible decisions, but Christianity, God helped me to become. Hey, if you need that to stay in a straight line and to not be a degenerate, then great. Go and use it and utilize it as a tool to help yourself. Me personally, I don't need it. I don't need the promise of eternal life to keep me in line to be a good person.
Something I wanted to ask you guys, going back to social media. Have you guys ever considered just kind of getting off social media altogether? Like, I feel like it's something that a lot of people consider, but it's so embedded in
only-
everybody's phones and their lifestyle that
Not only
it's
have I
just...
considered it, I've actually physically done it before. So I've deleted Facebook, Instagram, everything. And then what ends up happening is I just feel so out of the loop because then my buddies are all talking about something. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So then I will re-download it. So right now I only have Instagram and Snapchat. I've always had Snapchat. I never got rid of Snapchat. Actually, I did one time, but it was very brief. And then I got it back. I've always liked Snapchat because it's a good way to communicate with your buddies, like send them funny shit. But so I got Instagram back as well. But I don't have Facebook still. I don't really like Facebook. I think it's toxic, and I also just, for me, it's like
I haven't had
MySpace.
Facebook in 5 years, 6 years.
Yeah, not that it's bad either, or that people are bad for using it, but I do want to go.
I get all my movie news from there.
Can we take a break really quick?
Yeah, I gotta pee like a racehorse.
Bad.
But I do want to come back and talk some more.
Yeah.
All right, we're back from our little mini break. How was your guys' pee?
It was amazing.
It felt awesome.
Probably one of the longest pees I've taken in a while.
All right, jumping back into conversation.
Where do we start?
Let's talk about cops,
Cops?
please.
The 5-0, the pigs? We can't stand them. No, I'm kidding. I love the cops.
So
I mean, I don't like being pulled over getting a ticket. Let me put it that way. That's my beef with that. And
okay,
I don't like.
Matt, you get pulled over, you're fine, buddy. A black man gets pulled over, he should be fine, right?
I'm fine. I've never had. It wasn't when I was younger. When I, in my where I'm from, it was easier to, I guess, be profiled. Here, it's so diverse. I think.
Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, in Denver, it's not diverse. It's you're either Mexican or you're white, and then there's very few Asians, very few black people, and so it was a little bit easier where I'm from to be profiled because if you're not clearly a white person, they know you're a Chicano or Hispanic, right? And so when I was younger, I've been profiled, pulled over for absolutely no reason. They would make up reasons to pull you over. Oh, your license plate light is out, even though your license plate light isn't out, or things like that. But in Washington, I've never had
What
an
is
experience
your
with
guys' kind of
police.
opinion on abolish the police, defund the police, and all this other type of things that they're pushing onto police? I think right now relationship with the police is really weird. I feel like I always try to bring things locally. Like, how are things like in Puyallup with police? I feel like it's fine. But then
It's not
like I
bad.
see things on Facebook where people like there was like a cop officer who got something written on their driveway and stuff like that,
I
and like
got it, yeah.
someone was sharing it and saying like that's what you get, like you and this all this other stuff, and I'm just like, I maybe I'm just not like in that community that like hates the police, so I don't see people doing these actions, but I saw someone who supports like abolishing the police share that thread, and I was just like, I just don't know how this innocent cop gets this written on there,
Yeah, see,
and then all of a sudden like everyone's justifying it. Like, how does the guy who killed George Floyd resemble this guy from Puyallup?
they don't. Yeah, that's the thing is, that's the problem people have is people like to generalize an entire group and then just put the same blame that one cop, and then so for example that cop that murdered George Floyd, they then use him as the example and then place it on the entire group and then say, well, it's all cops that are bad. Well, I think there's a legitimate argument that maybe there's a system that they feel. Well, let me put it this way. I don't know systemically. I don't know if I believe that there's a huge widespread systemic racism issue in the police force. But I do think that a lot of people feel that way, and I think that that's they believe that for maybe they have a good reason to believe that. Maybe they've encountered something in their lives. I don't know. I haven't seen their personal experiences, but I don't think it's fair either way, no matter if it's systemic problem or not, to then generalize the entire group. A lot of people join the police force because they want to give back to their community. They want to make sure it's safe. They want to do something good.
Wrong.
Yeah. Wrong. No.
Wrong.
So I mean, I've even seen like really heroic stories. There was like a woman cop story I read a long time ago, female cop, many years ago, and I thought it was a very commendable story. But anyway, so I think that there's definitely good cops. There's certainly bad cops. So I agree with those protesters to a certain degree. I don't agree with the riots at all. I don't think that was a good way to handle business. I don't think that's
for 100
professional.
and what? How many days?
Someone's beeping.
I know. I heard that's very distracting. What is that, Victor? We've got a watch going off in here, folks. For your information.
It's not gonna pick up, but
Okay.
so
Picks up in my ear though. It's very distracting.
no. So going back to what you said, reaffirming the question, what's your opinion on abolishing or like?
Okay, so getting back to the
You can answer that,
abolition
I'll
of
fix
to the abolishing of the police. I don't think we should abolish the police. I don't think we should defund the police. I think if anything, we should give them more funding for better training. Now that doesn't mean that we go militarize the police and give them advanced.
What do you mean
weaponry.
go militarized? They are militarized.
I know.
It's already been done.
I'm opposed to the militarization of the police. I
Yeah.
don't like that. I don't like police brutality. In fact, I've been against police brutality since before it was the popular thing to do. I was against it when I was
well,
like
I hope
18, 19.
everyone
Well, you should be.
has
Yeah.
had an opinion of being against it for as long as it has.
Yeah, I mean, my point is
I don't
that-
want to cut you out. I wanted you to finish
Yeah.
your answer and then I can answer, but go on.
Yeah, my point is that I was like, vocal about it. Like I was, opposed to it. I think that, over or police taking the law or police taking you're overstepping in their power is government overreach. So, as a conservative or a more right-leaning person, I don't like government overreach as it is. I think that people should be free, obviously. I mean, I think that we agree on that, obviously. But yeah, so as far as abolishing the police, I don't agree with it. I don't think it's a good idea. I think that we have to have law and order. Who are you gonna call if you ban the guns, which the left wants to do, and then abolish the police? Who are you gonna call when you need someone? You're not gonna have anything. So on that regard, they're with that being said, their philosophy or their ban the guns, they don't line up. You have to have one or the other. You can't have no guns, no cops, and you can't have no cops, no guns, because it's just going to be ugly either way. So you got to have both. In
Something
my
that
opinion.
I noticed whenever they do the abolish
It's
the
not
police,
consistent. We put it that way.
abolish the police protests and something bad happens, the first person they call is the police to go address the situation.
Yeah.
Whenever they do their
They said, "Why do you need
police
guns? Just call the police. You need help." And then that was
No,
argued
no, I'm
forever.
talking about when there's a protest to abolish the police, and like let's say like
I know,
someone gets
then
shot or someone gets punched or,
or someone-
something.
yeah.
They yell, "Go call the police" or something.
and then the cops drag them out and they cheer them on, and then at the same time they're protesting the police. So it's
Yeah,
like,
but isn't that fair? So you're saying if I criticize this corrupt institution that I can't hold them accountable to doing their job. I mean, their point is kind of unfair to say, oh, you're protesting the police, but when someone is shooting you, you called them. Oh, typical.
Well,
It's
here's
like,
the thing,
dude,
if I was-
of course, because we want the police to do their fucking job. We don't want the police to overstep those bounds.
But he's
and
talking
to
about
do
the abolish the
more.
police.
Yeah.
Police
Even
folks.
yeah, but what does that
That's
mean
different.
exactly? I don't abolish is a new. It's
Extreme.
I think defund has been the common thing from the beginning.
There was both. Absolutely.
I've been, just like you said before, I've been a long standing person against the police because I've been profiled by the police. I've had more negative experience with police officers than I've had positive experience with police officers. And so I think it's an issue that is common in places where I'm from or in neighborhoods that are people of color because we are over policed. I think that's fair to say across the board that it's over policing. I think we need to get rid of how the policing system works. I wouldn't say necessarily defund them. I would say or abolish them. Let me be clear. We need police. We need people that can be out in communities and a part of communities to uphold the laws of our areas, country, or counties, states, and the country, right? We need people that can hold individuals accountable and to keep people safe in the sense of like, hey, just like you said, when something's going on and I don't know and I feel unsafe, I can call somebody and say, come help me, please. Mm-hmm. I think that's an American ideal to be able to call the police and them come help you when you're in danger or you feel threatened or any of those things. What I don't agree with is what policing has become today. Policing today is, you were mentioning good cops, bad cops. There are no good cops and there are no bad cops. There's good people and bad people. Police or cops in general, to me, are all bad because they're all pouring into a system that's broken.
Question. If you have a Black Lives Matter protest and someone throws a brick through a window and starts rioting, does that mean everybody in there is now associated with being bad or like a rioter?
Is it the Black Lives Matter organization, institution?
Well, I'm
or
talking
is it
about
just
simply,
like, oh, I saw they're doing a protest against police brutality, I'm going to go join them. Oh, this random person threw a brick and now I'm getting arrested for them throwing a brick? Because that's not the same thing.
Well, what I'm asking is, you say
I guess a good question would be,
if there's a few bad apples in the police force, that makes the whole system bad.
No, that's not true.
but is that
Okay, so elaborate on what you were saying then.
What I'm saying is the fraternity of policing is the problem. Police not holding bad people accountable within their own system is the problem. And that's why I'm not anti-cop as in we don't need them. I'm saying we need to look at what we're doing that is at a disservice to our communities.
So going back to if someone starts rioting, do everybody else need to stop that person from doing it? Or if they don't, if they just let it happen or they join in, are they a part of, is everyone who's involved a part of the problem?
That's a really hyper active scenario that or like huge, like what if question you're giving me, and there's no you're trapping me into an answer that doesn't make sense. This is a government institution that has government oversight that we can look at and critique. Some weird protest that has random people that have no organization, that aren't an institution, we can't hold that to the same standard that we're holding this government
institution. We can hold the group of people who are there at the protest.
No, you can't, because they're not part of a government institution, government taxpayer paid institution that we can hold accountable and critique as a citizen and as a taxpayer. It's apples and oranges, bro. These people are a part of a government institution that are creating hostile environments for people of color because they perpetuate this systemic racism of profiling, of over policing, of doing different things that cross the line. It has no, and it could be a black cop doing it to a black person. I've been profiled by a Mexican cop, a Mexican guy who profiled me. Why? Because it's the policing that's the problem, not that person individually. Mm-hmm. Systemic racism is not saying when I say cops are policing is systemically racist, I'm not saying every cop is a racist. I'm not saying each individual is a racist. I'm saying the system itself is racist. The way they operate is racist. That's what I'm saying. So it's hard to acknowledge them and not to critique them. That once again, that doesn't mean I don't need them. I need good cops to do their job. And their biggest
But there's no such thing as good cops.
Or sorry, I need cops to do their job. I need
So you're
people
complicating the language, just
Well,
like
no,
the whole
what
when
I'm
you get into the
saying is-
transgender argument. There's only 2 genders. Now it's kind of
No, that's just you could call it a Freudian
overcomplicated.
slip is what you can call it. But what I'm saying is we want cops to do their job and to uphold the law. They can't do that if they break the law themselves and if they don't know the law themselves, which they do constantly.
Well,
that's the problem.
question. Well, I guess getting back to the question rather. So where do you stand on defund and abolish? You said are not really for that.
I don't want to abolish the police. We need police, but we need them to do their job correctly, and we need to change the culture of policing. If that's a better way.
See,
of
my
putting
beef
it.
with it also to somewhat agree with you on that is like, how much like traffic control do we really need? Like, why do we have all this crap? Like, it's just the reason there's such a disconnect with police and people is because it stopped being like a public service and like a what's it called, like law enforcement. It's like your duty, your public, your a
Public service is a good way, or civic duty. Yeah.
what is there's a word, it's like you're there to protect. You're basically you're a public person. You're appointed to that position by the people. It stopped being like your cops to now there's a culture of police, and then there's a disconnect, and then there's your citizens, and then when you're a citizen you get pulled over by a cop. You don't really feel like you're in a position of power ever. You always feel like you're answering to your government official or something. You know what I mean? Like you feel like you're less. So when I get pulled over, for example, or when you get pulled over, do you ever feel like you can talk back to the cop, like you can defend your case or anything like that?
Have you ever?
It's never like that. It's always
I
like
do because I know my rights, and I know I'm educated enough to know that this person doesn't have authority or power over me. I have the rights and the authority as an American citizen to act a certain way, to say certain things. But not everyone knows that.
I think that's where the disconnect comes from, is that people feel like they've never, like you said, you've never had a positive encounter with the police.
I didn't say never. I've had more negative than positive.
So like, a lot of people would agree with that just simply because, people are tired of getting pulled over, getting tickets. So they're like, okay, yeah, defund the police.
Yeah, but have you ever been pulled over for something, for nothing, basically?
I just think
every time you've been pulled over, I would argue you knew what you were doing. You either knew you were speeding, or maybe you didn't think and didn't stop fully at a stop sign. Traffic infringes are completely different than over policing or stopping crime, right? Because
my point is that people are missing the big picture, though. If you don't have the police, if you abolish the police, they don't understand that there's consequences to that, or they defund.
I agree with that 100%. I don't think we should abolish the police. We absolutely need the police.
Yeah, I mean that's my beef with that.
We need to hold them to a higher standard. That's and I think
that's fair. I think anyone can agree with that.
Stand behind that. I don't think cops should be just people who've gone, because of this issue being such a hot topic. I don't think plumbers should have to require more freaking time and hours to get a state license than a police officer who has the power to take someone's life.
Yeah.
If we're granting, and I'm not saying we shouldn't grant them this authority, but if we are granting police officers the authority to make a split decision on whether this person lives or dies, we better train the hell out of this cop to know the difference, to de-escalate, to know how to approach people. And that's what I mean by defund the police.
Let me ask you a question.
We need to reallocate the money they get. Policing gets billions of dollars a year. We need to reallocate it to other
billions of dollars
areas.
Across every department, in the country. So there's a lot of I think there's probably a lack of funding. That's why you get the bad apples.
No.
But
Puyallup has a straight up arsenal, bro. They have a tank. They have a fully
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
military.
We don't like that.
We don't need.
Yeah.
How much
But
money did they spend on that? Millions.
Yeah, no.
Come
Well,
on.
let me. Well, yeah, it definitely costs a lot of money and R&D and all that crap too. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, my point is though, is that they miss the big picture. They don't see the consequences and things like that. I think a lot of them. And I also think that there's a lack of attempt at understanding the police officers themselves too, and their individual stories as well. I mean, you know, we're all here like. Or let me not we, because obviously I don't like to associate with Black Lives Matter, but Black Lives Matter, for an example, you know, they're huge on trying to listen to and understand the minority voices. But did they ever open up their heart or open up their mind to the fact that maybe the police officers have something to say too, and maybe they're not all bad people. Maybe there's a lot of good apples that deserve an opportunity to talk about what they go through as an officer and how difficult their job is. I mean, they got a lot on their plate and they have a huge responsibility.
Yeah, but that's their job. That doesn't.
Let me give you an example.
They don't get a pass for making mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes, but they don't get a pass just because their job is hard. We need to raise that standard.
Well, let me real quickly just give you an example. So I'm well acquainted with a very close person in my life, guy I know, and he used to be a cop. He's he works for the fire department in Seattle now. He was a firefighter, now he's a fire investigator, but he used to be a police officer. And he said he was responding to a call once with his partner at the time, and it was, I guess, a black man was the call that they were responding to, and the guy came out of his home with a gun in his hand, and Mike, or that's his name, he's a close buddy of mine. Anyways, he closer than just a buddy, but I'd get into that, but it's not worth it. Anyways, so he had to respond to this. The guy comes out of the house with a gun. Well, it's actually an apartment. Comes out of the apartment with a gun, and he had to make that split second decision. Do I shoot him to protect myself or not? He said it was the most afraid he's ever been in his entire life. He didn't know what to do, and he fortunately didn't end up shooting the guy. And it ended up that the gun he was holding was actually an airsoft gun. So he made the right decision, right call in the moment. But if that was a real gun and that guy had pointed at him, I would want my buddy here to shoot the guy. I don't care what color his skin is. If his life's in danger and he has to choose between, do I come home or do I potentially get shot and lose my life, come home to my family.
For sure.
So that's what I'm saying is there's a lot of middle ground in there that people aren't, trying, or that I don't think the cops are being given a fair shake. It's overrepresented the minority community and underrepresented towards the cops. And I understand that they're in a position of power and they're in a governmental position, so it's the system. It looks like it's the system against them. But I think it's all just there's not enough sympathy for the cops. There's over sympathetic to the black community. Well, I mean, if you look at Chicago, you know what I mean? It's black on black crime. I mean, it comes.
Oh, here we go. Black on black crime.
Well, is it not true though? I mean, it's fact.
What about white on white? What about Asian on Asian? Hispanic? That is a lazy, and this is just a point, and I'll let you go finish. You can't say black on black crime because across the board, if you are black, you are more likely to be victimized by another black person. If you are white, you are more likely to be harmed by another white person. So
what percentage of the American population is black?
I think it's 12 or 15. It's
12 to, I think it's like 14%, about 15%. And how much crime do they commit?
Oh, I know it's
50% of the crime. So it's not me giving a lazy argument. I mean, there's something wrong with the culture
in the sense of you can't use black.
It has nothing to do with
crime.
cops that black on that
no.
people are killing black
all
people.
I'm saying is you can't use black on black crime as a point because if you look at it in any racial group, white people are more likely to kill white people than other races. You're more likely to be killed by your own race than another race. So that's all I'm saying is you can't use...
So where's the racism then? Where does that fit in? If you're more likely to kill some of your own race?
What are we talking about? Are we talking about cops or are we talking about just general crime?
Well,
do we have a problem with inner city crime? Of course, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about police, right? Mm-hmm. And how they operate. And the question was, should we abolish it? I think we agree that we shouldn't abolish it.
I would say there's
all I'm saying
9 good apples for every bad apple. That's the way I view it. Because I've never met a terribly racist cop or
I hear what you're saying.
Instance,
all I'm saying, I guess it's kind of just to the point, is we need to hold police to a higher standard. And we need to stop this idea that just because they're cops doesn't mean they can't pay for their mistakes.
Well, let me
It's
ask you something.
we
That
can't
sounds great, and
we
I agree
can't
with
let
that.
these mistakes happen. We
That
have to
sounds
hold
great.
them accountable. So then we know. Oh, maybe if the cop knew, hey, I'm going to be charged. I will be held to a higher standard if I decide to shoot this person. I'm going to be
How do you think that makes you feel in the moment when you need to defend your life, though?
Well, once again, if
That
we're
blocks their ability to make a judgment. That's why it shouldn't be politicized. That's my view, because I don't think. But here's the thing: is I do understand there is those instances where a cop shoots somebody that's innocent and that's terrible, and those things happen. But you can't also take away their ability to make a quick snap judgment to protect their own life if they have to, Because then in the moment, what are they gonna think? If I shoot this guy, I'm gonna be the next guy
I
on
totally
TV
agree.
that
I totally
they're
agree with
demonizing.
you. What I'm saying is,
I know, but have you considered
can't-
that?
Yes, and I agree with you.
Well, you're one of the
What
rare.
I'm sa-
That's my
what
point.
I'm saying is, you can that doesn't mean that if that person mistaked a gun or a cell phone for a gun, that they can't be held accountable, bro.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my point is. Yes, we got to give them the authority to make those split decisions. We got to give them the proper training and the proper mindset for them, training to get in the mindset to make those decisions. But that doesn't mean that if I think this person has a gun and I kill and shoot them, but it resulted that person didn't have a gun, I still need to pay the piper, bro. I need to be held to a higher standard than just average what about all the black people killing black people? Yeah, well, those are gang member thugs. They're not a police officer who's supposed to be trained and help the community. That's not them. So how are you going to hold them to the same standard? We need to hold cops to a higher standard, so then it results in better cops.
Yeah,
better policing.
I'm on
That's
board with
all I'm
everything you
saying.
say. Yeah, I'm on board with everything you say, 100%. I think, however, when you look at legislating that, it's a lot more complicated because
No, not
on paper that sounds great, but then so does communism on paper.
Well, no,
sounds great.
legislation to me would be saying, hey, instead of spending your money on tanks and riot gear for Puyallup PD,
That's true.
How about you send your cops to better training? How about we require cops to have a 4-year degree?
So just to be clear, let me ask you something. Just to be clear,
Yeah.
So when you say allocate resources better, you mean so you're not saying defund, you're not saying give them more money, you're saying just don't go on riot gear, don't go on
I'm saying
tanks.
maybe they, like you said,
And then just give it
talk
to their
about
training. That's
policing
smart. That's actually a good idea.
We talk about policing gets billions across the board, but each county, each city is different. Some might need more money. I don't know. I don't know what's on the books, right? In each city and each county. Some might need more money. What I'm saying is we need to just hold police to a higher standard than just every average Joe out on the street. Why? Because we're giving them the authority to make split decisions on people's lives. That's why we need to hold them. And when we have this 9-week, 10-week system where like, oh yeah, here's this guy who was a plumber yesterday, but now has gone through a 9-week training to be a cop. Here's a gun. Here's the authority to go kill somebody.
Yeah.
We need to have better training than that. And I think that is...
Well, first of all, I don't know how long the training is. I think it's like a year, but still even...
Most police academies are less than a year overall. There's some that's more.
Yeah. Well, my
some
point
cities
is,
require more.
Just to be clear, I totally agree. No, I don't want to defund the police. I don't want to abolish the police. I think we can do better with their training, absolutely. So I think we agree on all that.
Yeah.
My only point was that I don't think so. I would say that you're an independent thinker, absolutely. But what I mean is that the big, like, I think that most of the protesters, most of them, they're not considering the cop angle the same way you are. I'd say
I don't
that's a fair thing
consider
to
the
say.
cop angle because I'm...
No, I'd say you are considering the cop.
Well,
the
I
cop's point of
consider
view.
them
They're
angle,
not.
but
That's
what
my
I'm saying is
problem with this.
I personally, in my mind, hold police to a higher standard. So when I criticize them, it's because I don't think they're meeting that standard. But with that said, like you said, all these people, like, when
Like
I
the
see
Antifas and
videos,
things like that,
when
I
I
mean.
see video footage of Portland and everything, I don't even see black people.
Yeah, I
I don't
know.
even see
That's a good
people
point.
of
It's all-
color.
it's all
I see,
Antifa,
I mean,
white people.
there's a lot of ins and outs to who's calling for these abolishing and defunding. Who is saying it? Is it, you know what I mean? Like, I haven't seen highly intellectual black community members calling for it. And there's good reason to it because we need police. The police, we need them. They need to be held to a higher standard, but on top of that, they need to be a part of our communities. That's, I think, an even bigger issue.
Yeah,
is
I
our
agree.
cops need
That's
to
what I was trying
be
to say.
a part of our communities. We need to build better trust between people of communities to police officers. But once
Yeah, there should
again,
be- I don't know
it
what
gets
we could do,
polarized, right? All these people, Blue Lives Matter bullshit like that.
Well, also
to
Black
me, it's
Lives Matter,
fucking
too.
stupid.
It's both stupid.
No, it's not, because being black isn't you're born black. I can understand. Don't get me wrong. I don't support the Black Lives Matter organization.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
Right? But being black isn't something you choose. There are no blue lives. You don't. You're not
See, that's
born
what
a cop.
I don't see
You're
that
not
argument.
born that. This is a career path that you've chosen that you're deciding. Hey, it has its risks. Just like deep sea fishing, all those Alaska fishers, those dudes die at a higher rate than any other job or whatever. Because it's really dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
They know the job comes with risk. Cops know the job comes with risk. Don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean, oh yeah, who gives a fuck about them? And if they get shot, whatever. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it's polarized because of the current political climate. It has polarized people's support for what it means to support the police, right? Like, I can criticize the police and still need the police. That's my whole
you should
thing.
absolutely. I mean, they should be.
I should be able, as an American, to criticize a system that I don't think serves me as well as it serves other people, and I should still be able to use that service. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. The only thing I don't see still, and this is just, I don't know. I mean, we might not ever agree on this, but is where race comes into this, where it's. The cops are targeting black people, are targeting Latino, Hispanic people, or targeting white people or Asian people. I don't think that the system is rigged for white people's favor. I don't see it.
The proof is in the pudding, bro. People of color are 2 times more likely to be killed by police, period. That's just fact.
Well, then we go back to the 14% of the population, 50% of the crime.
It doesn't matter.
No, it does matter.
No, it doesn't, because you have to do it per capita. Because, like, if you're looking at the numbers, of course, more white people are killed by police officers than any other race. But that's because there's more white people in the United States than any other race.
Okay, then how does less of the population commit more of the crime than the white people make up more of the conversation?
You have to look at,
and
I don't even know if we have time to do this, nor the mental capacity to do it. You have to go back and look at the history of where these communities are, how these communities were developed, and what is going on.
And then Joe Biden's policies that put them in worse places.
And that's objective.
But then you're
that's
the
opinion.
one that's voting for him. I'm not voting for him. I
That's
don't like
opinion.
the crime bill.
I'm saying, I'm talking history, real history, not
that is
in the
history.
last 47 years or whatever Joe Biden has been doing. I'm saying since the inception of our country, how we've created certain neighborhoods and where people of color live. That matters. Once again, I don't think we have time nor the mental capacity to do it right now, but those histories of why there's quote unquote more crime in neighborhoods of people of color, there's so many different factors that go into that.
That's true.
And so you just have to look at how we've been doing things and understand that if the police, I've said this a million times, if the police don't even know the law themselves, how can they uphold the law? Or if the police are willing to knowingly break the law to get whatever they're trying to do, then how is that okay as well? I don't think that we disagree that that is not okay. I don't think you should, even if you know, even if you suspiciously, you have a gut feeling that this person is doing such and such, if you don't have basis to stop them, to ID them, to do whatever, if you can't do your job without breaking someone's civil rights, then I'm sorry, you shouldn't be approaching those persons. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be breaking the law to get to an end that you like, or to get into something, or to find something that's going on. That's all I'm saying.
So when you vote for Biden, you're also kind of voting, or you're mainly voting for Kamala Harris as president. You could look at her background of...
Yeah, she's a cop. She's made terrible decisions. Once again, we're talking about...
And she never addresses it. She just says she stands by all her...
But your view on Biden, Kamala, though, is just that they're better than Trump, and that's why you vote for them.
Right.
Not because you like them.
I use the analogy with Victor in the last one is I view the presidential like this as a vessel to get in the direction where I think we need to go. It's not a romantic comedy. They're not the number one, the best fit, my soulmate there's going to be critiques in all that they do, but there's enough good or enough things that aren't happening with them that are happening with Trump that I was willing to give my vote to them. That's all it means.
Just want to be clear right now, or today is October 21st, and I will say this is my personal belief, is that Trump supporters love Trump, whereas Kamala Biden supporters they're not that enthusiastic about them. So predicting as of October 24th, despite the polls, what they're saying, I do believe Trump will win because he has tons more enthusiasm.
Listen to those polls. I mean,
yeah, look what they did in 2016.
Yeah.
Well, also it's just a fact of how many people are willing, like family people, willing to say they're voting for Trump. Especially because that's a statement now where if you say you're voting for Trump in a work environment, like...
Yeah, I don't agree with how political culture today has created this, like, oh, if you vote for this one person, I can't be friends with you
That's
anymore.
ridiculous.
It's like...
That happened to me.
There's
like, a girl I know.
If they just knew what George H.W. did to the American people, like, if people knew what George H.W. did to policy and to the American people and all these things, it would have been like, you know what I mean? Like back then, no one, if you voted for
he was
Bush,
pushing the New World Order
you know
as
what
well.
I mean? Like no one cares.
It's true.
But today
He did say
it's
it.
like, oh, I'm so woke and you're not on board with every single issue that I believe in. I can't even associate
That's
with
ridiculous.
you because you have a different opinion.
That's when you know you're
terrible.
wrong, when you can't
That's-
open up your
to
mind.
me, it's anti-American.
It is.
I mean, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, obviously, look at you two. I would call my friends, right? We have completely different ideologies that we follow,
And that's a
completely
big
different
thing
opinions.
that I think
Well, in some
is-
areas, but in other areas of our
Yeah.
life, we agree
Well,
a lot.
I'm saying,
Yeah.
I
even
love
some of these
spiders. You guys would kill 'em.
Well,
that's what I'm
some
saying.
of these little
Yeah.
things. I have friends, or I shouldn't say have friends. I know people who, even with our small amount of disagreement, couldn't be friends. They couldn't be friends with you because of this and this that you believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I have conservative friends that totally, like, it's not that we're not friends, but they won't even have a conversation with me because they know I lean a little bit more left than them. You know what I mean? Because I'm not a conservative or because I'm not a Christian or whatever. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
ridiculous. Yeah, see, that's the thing is, I think if people just sat down and talked and just hashed it out and just had the conversation, they'd realize they actually have a lot more in common with
Absolutely.
these people. Because that's what I always say. It's just politics. At the end of the day, it's fine. I mean, someone's going to get elected either way. It might be your candidate, it might not be. But either way, at the end of the day, I mean, we're still Americans. We can still get along.
Today's
and, be
culture, woke culture and everything, you need to, and we talked about this before, it's all or nothing. If you don't believe in every single thing that I believe in, then you're the enemy. And that's that's not right.
Do you guys
You're
think
not
there's going to
welcome
be
to my
a second civil war? Like people are...
No, fortunately, I don't think so. I hope not. I know like
Well,
51%.
of course, I hope we don't.
I do think
but
if
I
Trump
don't think
becomes
so.
president, I think we're going to see the riots get worse. And then also
Probably.
with the George Floyd case, they pushed his... we kind of talked about this a little bit too. They pushed his thing to second-degree murder, which was murder with intent.
Mhm.
And it's going to be a little bit harder with the autopsy and the footage that came out with it. So he might just get off. And what's going to happen then with the riots? What's going to happen then if Trump becomes president?
I don't think he's gonna get off though.
I don't think he is either.
But and let me
fortunately.
tell you why. I think he did. Personally, I think he should be convicted, like of any whatever. I think he needs to go to jail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Period. But I think they're gonna use him because he was kind of like. Now that we know more about this guy,
He's the example.
He's like kind of sleazy. He wasn't totally on the up and up, like tax fraud too. He has some tax fraud issues. He, like people in his community know him kind of as a sleazy guy. So I think they're gonna crucify him. I think the
I
system
think he'll
is
face
like,
justice.
Hey, we'll throw the book at this dude so we can save face.
What
of it.
about,
But I think it's fair.
Yeah.
Do you-
not
what do you-
only does like he deserves to face justice, but he also should face justice for the sake of society probably at this
for
point as
sure.
well. But he also deserves it. So I mean,
But
it's a
will-
real claim to justice.
I will agree with you guys in the sense that me and Xana, who's a liberal, my wife Xana, we did agree that if Biden wins, I don't think there's going to be riots in the street. Maybe not on a massive scale. There might be
because
something.
conservatives
They just don't do that.
they don't. Yeah.
They just don't do it, and that's just the truth. You know, they don't get out and do that stuff.
Going back to the crime stuff, where do you think the Kyle Rittenhouse situation is going to go? I think that's really interesting. We kind of brought this up over text. I just think that's bad parenting. Like, I would never let my kid go out to
with
a
an
riot
AR.
with an AR. Yeah.
Well, I don't think they're gonna make an example out of him, like send him to jail for a long time. I think he's gonna be convicted of something. Whether he serves jail time for it, I don't know. You know, it could be like a probationary thing or a thing where, you know,
I just
house arrest.
I support his right to bear arms, but, you know, I think that to me, that's a little bit far right once you start getting into that territory. When you're, and not saying that he's a bad dude and he deserves to go to prison.
Well, they're calling him white supremacist and all this other stuff. I'm like,
that's ridiculous. See, I think that's ridiculous. But
his mom might be a little white supremacy, but
yeah, my point of view on that is just that, you know, I wouldn't personally. I don't support, you know, that he went out with, you know, and did all that. Not that, you know, it's not his right to bear a, you know, an AR and to protect his life and things like that. I absolutely support all that. But we're getting into, in my opinion, radical right territory. If I'm going to hold Antifa and the radical left to such a high standard, I think you should do the same thing with the radical right. And I think it's fair to say, okay, you know, he went out with a gun, but defending himself, you know, I'm all for self-defense.
No, absolutely.
I'm all for the Second
video
Amendment.
I saw, it shows a dude running up to him with a gun.
Yeah.
And he fucking blasts him. Like, all I can say is I would do the same fucking thing. But once again, you got to think of context. It would be one thing if he was in his own neighborhood defending his or his neighbor's property, whatever his case. No, these motherfuckers got in a car, drove across state line, took weapons from their state to another. There's a whole lot of layers.
I think it's kind of vigilante feeling
that made this a dicier thing.
But to be fair, I don't think Kyle Rittenhouse is a bad kid. When you're that young,
I just think it's weird because I can only imagine carrying the burden of like what he killed 3 people, 2-3. That's carrying that burden.
Did he?
No, he didn't kill.
I don't think he killed anyone. Did he?
Yeah, he did.
He
killed one person.
He killed one.
And maybe 2. I think 2. Sorry. I think he killed 2 person and the third person
that's gonna affect.
I don't know
what.
Like I said before, I don't know if I have the. I mean, like if it came down to it, I have to protect my family and my tarantulas. I would do it, but like I just feel like I would.
Well, if they're breaking into your home, that's a totally different.
Well, no,
situation.
that's
what
still.
I mean. Like,
yeah.
It's his. If he was in his, once again, if a riot was happening in our neighborhood, and I saw they're fucking destroying my neighborhood. You best believe I'd be out in my front yard with my AR-15 and anything else I had.
Remember how the media crucified that lawyer couple
people
in their neighborhood, the lawyer couple, and then BLM came in or Antifa came in and broke
they
down
broke
their
the fence. Yeah.
That actually supported that. I'm fine with it. And they didn't shoot anyone. They just brandished
They
their
just
firearms.
they did aim the
don't
gun.
Get me wrong, the wife did.
Yeah.
The male or the husband, he kept his finger off the trigger. You know, he kept it off the trigger and he didn't point it at anyone. He kept proper
That's sexist.
Etiquette.
That's sexist.
But the wife, I was like, dude, she's just gonna pull the trigger accidentally. She's all shaky,
probably never held a gun,
pointing the gun.
Maybe she has.
She was a dumbass.
But either way, that's their right.
Totally
that's their
that.
property. That's their
Absolutely.
neighborhood. That one I support. The Kyle Rittenhouse thing's a little bit more.
Like I always say, I
territory.
wish a motherfucker would come in my house.
I just, no, but do you think you would carry like even if it's justified killing? Do you think you would carry that kind of like? Knowing that you took another person's, I feel like
that's hard.
That's
no matter
hard
what.
to like hold, especially on your contract.
No, I think if there's a certain amount of justification, I think as humans we're gonna tell ourselves what we need to hear to feel better about it. And so if there is justification to it, I don't think they will sit with it. You know, like my father was drafted in Vietnam and stuff like that. I think it was different when you're a military, you're sent to another country and you're killing these people that you have no idea who they are and why you're doing it. That I think maybe sits on them a little bit differently than, oh, someone's doing this, I'm protecting my life in this kind of scenario. I don't think it's going to sit with him. I think he feels, and this once again, this is my personal opinion, I think he feels justified enough to be okay with.
You could be right. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nobody knows what's going on in his head.
Let's get into a little bit more of a transitional topic in the sense of Matt, you more expertise, but I also want to hear Buddy's opinion on this.
Firearms?
With Clockwork Elves.
Oh my god.
Way into more firearms than you, but anyway.
What? Hold on. Can we have a firearm discussion? Because I'd actually like to talk about that. Okay, well, we'll get into the Clockwork Elves and stuff as well. But so firearms. What you got any questions for us?
Scar, I found in a rare chest.
Oh my god. Well, what kind of firearms do you like? What do you shoot?
I have a bunch.
What do you
I
have?
sent that picture. I don't want to say.
You know, it's funny. I was just watching a podcast with Tim Pool, and
Let me put it this
someone
way.
someone in his chat asked him what guns he bought. He's like, I heard from gun owners that you just don't say that information.
You don't. It's like a taboo.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but I'm
No,
not
I
afraid to
don't
talk
mind.
about what I like.
Yeah,
Let me put it this way: what do you like to shoot? What firearms do you like? Let me put it this way.
I like them all. I pretty much have one or two of almost every genre, right? Like
So you have pistol, shotgun,
I have
AR.
pistols, rifles, shotguns. I have AR-15. I have AR-15 things, quote unquote.
Racist.
What was it? What was
Okay.
that?
I like to say tactical rifles.
What
Yeah.
was
Tactical
Joe Biden's
rifles.
AR-14s? He was gonna ban all the.
Oh my, I don't
He
know.
He just didn't.
I
understand.
love his whole spiel about get a 12 gauge shotgun.
He's like,
and lots-
get a shotgun. That was like the creepiest, eeriest. Like I'm coming for your guns. Like just get the
Yeah,
shotgun.
no one's gonna.
Yeah.
It's just like with Hillary, bro.
Yeah.
No one's gonna come for any guns. There's certain things that I.
Well, he
agree
wants
with.
mandatory, or he wants optional or mandatory buybacks or something like that. Joe Biden,
No,
where they
that's
come
not
buy
on
your
his-
guns.
that's not on his
but a
policy
complete
platform.
ban on assault rifles. Which
Well, what defines assault? Have you seen those videos? I think Steven Crowder. He walks around. And
What
asks,
defines
what is
assault
this-
rifle?
What's it?
well, first of all,
First
it's
of all,
not an
liberals
assault
don't have-
rifle. Yeah,
People
because
who
assault
don't
rifles
know
are fully
guns have
automatic.
nothing. First of all, there's no such thing as an assault rifle.
Well, not civilian. I mean,
Well, no, there's no. How is using that word assault make it any different than anything else?
you could say fully
My
automatic
M14,
rifle. That's more accurate.
Well, fully automatic is different. That's not anything. You know,
Yeah,
what I
an
mean?
AR
Like,
semi, obviously
my
automatic,
M14
5.56, 223 round.
does the exact same thing as my AR-15, but when you put them next to each other,
One looks
people would
black
think-
and scary, and the other
and
one,
the other one is wood.
Black and
Racist.
It's made out of wood. No, mine's blue.
Your AR.
My AR is blue.
Oh, do you have like AR precision?
coated.
I
Oh, you have
looked
the
it up.
Cerakote?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I
So
I
you
looked
know
it
about
up,
guns,
and when
bro.
I turned 21, they have a custom-made AR-15 that's like spider themed. So like the barrel is like all spider webbed in this
Oh,
right.
yeah.
in the
Yeah,
middle.
but for FYI, for information, I have been around guns my entire life. I love guns. I've been shooting handguns since I was a kid. I've been shooting 22 since I was a kid, and then
Oh,
I
yeah.
graduated to ARs, and I graduated to 308s.
You ever just watch videos of
I
people
would-
like failing to shoot a gun or like the recoil?
Oh,
So it's funny when you see these when
time.
you see like or not Antifa, but when you see like the left like arguing about guns and they start bringing up terms like 30 round clips that can shoot, in half a second. I'm like, bro, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like I've been around guns my whole life. I know the difference between fully automatic, semi-automatic, revolver.
I shot my first gun when I was 6 years old,
I don't even know.
I've only
what
shot a
it is.
gun
It's about
once.
the same though.
and I've had firearms in the house my whole life. I've been.
Did they
around
ever shoot
firearms
anyone?
my
Did
whole
they ever
life.
get up and shoot
Yeah.
anyone?
Did they ever get up? No, absolutely not. But it's about education.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of killings, because what we talked about earlier about statistics, they jumble up
Suicides.
gun killings in a huge thing. Suicides, accidental firings, all these things get put in the same category. Oh, that's a gun death. So guns are bad.
Just like
It's
the
all
COVID
about
deaths.
educate. Yeah, exactly. It's all about education. If you're gonna own firearms, you need to teach your children how to use them and why when it's appropriate and when it's not appropriate. And then on top of that, when you have little children who are curious and who can get into things, you need to properly secure them. That's just how it is.
The norm.
You know what
Absolutely.
I mean?
No,
That's
I
the
agree with
norm.
that,
It
yeah.
has to be something that you do, and you can't just tell them nothing about it, and then when they find it, or only show them the recreational side and just be like, "Oh, how fun," and not properly lock it away. You know,
I was
know,
taught gun safety at a very young age. I was taught
Absolutely.
always treat them like they're loaded, never point at someone. Even if even if you got the slide back and no round in the magazine, if the
point at
magazine's
it,
out of the gun, you always treat it like it's
Unless
loaded.
you
You don't
intend to
play
shoot 'em.
because that's how people get hurt. Because people think it's not loaded. In fact,
Oh,
I
yeah.
knew a guy in high school. I won't name him by name, but he ended up he had a gun in his hand. He was trying to flex. He was like a SoundCloud rapper kind of guy, trying to flex or like taking a video, and he pointed at a girl's head and was like joking to pull the trigger and thought it was not loaded. Shot this girl, killed her, and now he's in prison. So it's totally. Something that
Did
was
you guys watch
instilled in me.
Tiger King this quarantine season?
I
didn't
don't
watch
watch
Tiger
Netflix.
King.
I don't really watch Netflix. That
So
much.
in Tiger King,
Except for
that
Cuties.
happens
Victor watched
in the
Cuties.
thing. This guy, because they had guns. When you know the story, whatever, the people around this guy, everyone had guns. They use guns everywhere. They're recreational gun users. Same thing. This guy fucking around, messing around, thought it was not loaded, pulled the trigger, shot himself in the head.
Mm-hmm.
Killed.
Who was
You know
the
what I mean?
actor who had the prop gun? Was it? I think it was Bruce Lee's son. He had the prop gun and he like pretended to shoot it.
Well, it wasn't a prop gun. It was supposed to be blanks,
yeah.
but it wasn't a blank. It was actual. Yeah.
And then on the Crow,
Brandon Lee.
Yeah, and then on the Crow, they put like an actual bullet in that one.
Yeah,
scene.
he died during. I believe he died during the filming of The Crow.
Yeah, that's wild.
Weird, yeah.
It's a good movie. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah.
I did when I was a kid, but I haven't seen it in a long ass time.
Yeah, he died in that movie. But once again, it's about education. It's about knowing what is going
It's not
on
that
in your
complicated.
own.
Maybe it's just because I grew up around them, but like when I hear like liberals talking about guns, I have no idea what they're talking about. I'm like, it's really not that
Well,
complex.
also,
Like,
you hear
I
people
don't
saying
think it
that like
is.
in L.A., there's like a line to go to the gun store now with everything that's going on.
Oh
yeah,
no,
you can't
100%.
find- you
I
can't
I
find
shot for a
shit right
gun.
now.
Yeah, exactly. No, I shot for a gun during the quarantine, and I was shopping. First of all, terrible service because they're all super stressed out because they told me they've had more first time gun buyers during the riots and during the
Mm-hmm.
COVID than they've had that in 2 months more first time gun buyers than they've ever had in any given year they've ever been doing business.
yeah.
So yeah, you can't find shit. I went there looking for. I was shopping for a SIG MPX at the time. It's like a $2,000 AR. I didn't end up getting one, but I looked around. I couldn't
like the
find
cheap
shit
ones.
for ARs, and then I couldn't even like shopping for pistols. Their selection was limited, and then no ammunition. They had nothing. The only time you could get ammo, and it was like it was like a totally a thing they were doing only for gun buyers. So I bought one. Like, okay, we got one box left. We'll hook you up with a box, and they obviously I paid for it, but you couldn't go in there just to buy ammo. Like it was only for actually buying a firearm. Did
That's a
they
good
hook you up with
idea.
any rounds? But yeah, there was nothing because people were anxious about what was going on with the quarantine, with the
Ever
COVID-19,
since
and
like
with the riots.
Hillary, like when everyone thought she was going to win the presidency. So ever since that time in 2016, that era, I've always stockpiled ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
And so like,
That's smart.
I don't think I have under 1,000 rounds in anything I have.
Well, how do you? Well, you're a big Second Amendment advocate. So how do you support the left wing? I mean, I don't understand that because those people are really serious about coming.
Well,
for the
I
gun.
don't
They
I don't
don't
support the left.
They
wing.
don't line up with that.
I'm an
value of
independent
yours, just so you
thinker.
know.
I am a registered Democrat only because in Colorado you have to be registered to a party to vote in the primaries. So like
Oh,
right now I got to just redo my registration to be an independent because I'm truly an independent. But yeah, I totally support the Second Amendment, and I think it's something that we need to institute more on the basis of what the Second Amendment really means. Now, once again, you
That's one of
can.
mine.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You got that legitimate Trichicon ACOG gun?
You can argue.
$1,200 optic.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'll stick with my steel sights.
I told you I like my shiny shit.
I'll stick with my steel sights. But you can argue it all the way back to its inception about how it was against, it granted these people to go and rule over slaves and stuff. And that could be true. Absolutely. But today, in today's time, I just apply it to my life.
I don't think I had anything to do with slaves. In fact, slavery was incredibly unpopular.
Historically, it does. Policing and the Second Amendment have to do with slaves.
Well, the Second Amendment didn't have to do with slaves. It had to do with not being a slave because, they were resisting a tyrannical government and they wanted to ensure that they never had to, face a tyrannical government again. The only way to do that is the armed citizenry. And back then, the Second Amendment was more extreme than it is now. I mean, they were allowed to have peak technology at the time. They were allowed to have cannons and arm their ships with cannons, which is like us getting a tank today. That's the
You can get a tank and just
Similarity.
drive it as a car.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Oh, I like it. Okay.
So
You
what?
got the key mod? Are you a key mod guy?
Yeah, what I'm getting at is I see it as just like you just said. I want to protect myself from a tyrannical government. If the police are able to have AR-15s, militarized weapons, and all these things, then you best believe I'm going to own my own too.
Yeah, I agree with
because
that.
the first step, it's not going to be the army that comes and takes your gun away.
It's going to start with the police.
It's going to be the police.
And then it's going to escalate if they have an issue.
Absolutely. The police are an extension of the government. And if they have all this capability, if they have the access to all the flak jackets, military body armor, then
Kevlar.
I should have it as well.
But
right?
we already. I mean, we don't have access to fully automatics, which the military.
No, we do. You just have to go.
You can. It's really difficult to do. I mean, you
Right.
gotta
They
get
make it very, very hard to do as an average citizen, which is fair to a certain extent. But
I would say so too. I mean, you shouldn't have.
I don't need, but neither do cops. Cops
Also,
don't
fully
have
automatic,
fully
you can't control that shit unless you're really highly trained.
I've shot fully automatics, and I personally don't like them. I've shot fully automatic pistols. I've shot fully automatic rifles.
Same, yeah.
And I've shot
Not rifles, but pistols.
fully automatic, like 50 big. I shot a big 50 cal.
I've never shot a 50.
Big giant gun, you know. So
Did
it
it
all
hurt?
just depends. No,
Doesn't
'cause
it do
it's
most of the work
mounted
for
on-
you?
It was mounted on a truck.
Yeah.
You know, so you're just.
Oh,
but I mean, it's just. Boom, boom,
that's
boom, 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 boom.
dope. Okay, I never
so,
did that.
like,
I was thinking like Barrett 50 cal, like sniper
No.
rifle.
Like Modern Warfare 2.
Big old giant artillery 50 cal gun on top of a truck.
Badass.
If it, like I said, if they have access to those things, I think every law-abiding citizen should have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Because
Now,
it
why would they
protects
want to take the
me-
guns? Now, explain that.
No, I'm saying if they.
No, I'm
ever
saying
did.
why would they? Explain that to the audience.
Well, obviously, we can look back historically as well as
Hitler took
what
the
do you
guns.
do
Stalin took the
exactly? What do you
guns.
do when you want to control a massive amount of people? Is you take away their ability to revolt. You take away their ability to stand against you.
And you make it seem like a noble thing. Like you say,
Well,
give us your
historically it
right
has-
to
yeah.
because these school shootings are happening. Give us your, we're going to take the Second Amendment to make sure this doesn't happen anymore. But then what happens when you take the guns from the law-abiding citizen, or when you take when you ban
When you
firearms?
criminalize firearms, only criminals are going to have firearms.
Yeah, because do criminals
'Cause
obey the
I-
law? No.
I don't know
that's
about
what
you
it
guys, but
classifies
I'm
them
not
as
going to
such.
give up anything. Even if they said mandatory buybacks, I wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I would become a criminal. And it would be the system that's creating that criminal, not me doing a criminal act.
Are you guys familiar with FPS Russia?
I do, yeah.
Did you guys hear about what happened with him? With
Uh-uh.
his like, he got caught with marijuana or whatever, and now he's like has a felony, and they took over like 500K worth of his guns.
Wow.
So now he can't
that's
own
crazy.
anything. Yeah, and it was just like a marijuana charge, and they got him on like
Yeah.
to distribute with.
Yeah,
he
well,
had his
there is a
girlfriend-
big
He had his girlfriend
demonization
come
of
over, and she smoked some of
Russians
his
right now
weed.
as well as we
Well,
know.
I personally don't really like them, but
Mhm.
not that I
I actually
dislike
think they're
them.
hilarious because
I just don't like the way they've come into certain communities, especially in the Pacific Northwest, and they take over and they have created these like really like if you're not Slavic, get the fuck out type mentalities.
I didn't know that,
And
yeah.
I've heard this a lot, especially in Tacoma, in the areas, certain areas.
there's every encounter with any Russian or Ukrainian individual I've ever had has always been good. They're always hilarious. I don't
I
know
want to
why.
go to Ukraine.
I had this one guy. So I used to
been
work at
there.
Super Supplements, as people
Did you
know.
go to Chernobyl?
And
That's the only reason why I want to go there is visit Chernobyl.
so listen to this. So I had this Russian guy come in, and he was wearing like an American flag, like what do you call it, like tank top, because he just got out of the gym, like shorts and everything. And he was a big fucking swole
he's
Russian
racist.
guy. He's probably like mid-20s. Anyways, comes in Super Stops one day, and he buys his stuff, and he's got like a Russian accent. I was like, "Oh, where's your accent from?" I had a pretty good feeling it was from Russia, but I was asked anyways. And he was like, "Oh, Russia, whatever." And I was like, "Oh, nice. Was that you with the election?" I said that to him. I was like, "Was that you with the election?" And he's like, "What did he say?" He was like, "I can't believe people fucking believe that shit." I was like, I don't get like the Russian accent.
I mean, they
it was
did.
hilarious.
They did meddle, but whether
Well, I
it
mean,
was enough to-
every country meddles in each other's elections. I feel like that's kind of just
Well,
a given.
I don't think that necessarily. I think it happened on a massive scale with our social media and things with the Russia and stuff. But it's funny that you point that out because how many elections have we meddled in?
Oh, pff,
How many
Probably
how many
everyone.
leaders have we helped the rebellion overthrow because we like them better than this person?
Yeah.
So, it's
but
like-
I view Trump
an
and the Trump
American
movement as a
standard.
rebellion, not the other way around.
no.
I-
What I'm saying is we've done far worse
Oh,
than
yeah.
what these countries have done.
Bay of
to,
Pigs and all that.
supposedly to Bay
Cuba.
of Pigs, Cuba, Panama Canal,
Afghanistan,
the
Soviet Union.
entire South American continent. I mean, the list goes on and on. We did plenty of things as Americans or as a nation that we have no right to be calling out any other country.
They released that UFO footage though. That was pretty.
What do you
cool.
think about that? Do you believe in aliens, buddy?
I do, dude.
Have you seen
do.
the interviews of the pilots
It's probably the
saying-
one thing, and I'm being completely honest. Like, this is gonna sound ridiculous, but it's probably the one thing that I'm actually very, very like. I'm afraid of them.
Well, I would keep one
Like
as a
that's
pet.
one of my biggest fears. is,
Or would they keep you as a pet?
I don't know how well
I'd call that.
how well are you guys versed with aliens?
I
Let me
watched
put it
the.
this way.
Because
let
I'm
me put it
like
this way.
into it pretty.
So let me put it this way. So when I was a kid, the reason I'm so like well versed politically and with all that stuff already is because when I was a kid, I
watch
was
Signs?
fascinated by UFO stuff, fascinated in Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, all that crap. So I was fascinated by that. There was like the Shadowlands.net, like kind of early in the early internet, like conspiracy theory, dark web days. So I got really into that. That's what got me into conspiracies. And then I started to kind of phase out of UFO stuff as I got a little bit older and more into the actual government conspiracies, the satanic shit. And then now I'm just, that kind of got me into politics by itself. So I love UFO stuff. I'm pretty
The
well versed
thing
in it.
that scares me the most are the grays. I don't know if you guys know what those are.
Oh
Grays.
yeah, you know the Greys.
Yeah.
I
Those,
I don't know what
those
that
are
is.
like
That's kind of the
classic looking
classic
aliens, like teardrop shaped
But
heads.
they're green or gray, but
They're
they generally
they're
call
called
them the Greys. Yeah.
right? Those literally terrify me.
They're
Like
freaky as hell.
I can't watch movies like The Fourth Kind.
Oh,
my
what was it?
God.
Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind?
No,
No,
The
it's fourth kind of Mila Jovovich.
Oh, dude.
That was a
What
good
about,
film. Did you ever watch Signs?
Or, yeah, Signs, but to me that's more
That wasn't-
cartoonish.
That was
you know?
good. That was a great movie.
When you just see
Don't
that
get me wrong.
Fire in
Grab
the
the
Sky.
Fire in
You
the
guys
Sky is
need
a
to
good
watch
one.
Fire in the
Close
Sky.
That's a
Encounters.
classic.
Close Encounters. Arrival was really good.
And so, like, it sounds when people like, I'm not afraid of spiders. I'm not afraid of snakes. I don't like.
We don't like aliens.
I can't.
I am
stand
fingers crossed
aliens,
that
bro.
some mutated spider from Chernobyl
What do
comes
you
out the
think-
size of a person or something.
What do you think
yeah.
aliens are? So a lot of people have the theory that aliens are from outer space, and then a lot of people have the theory that aliens are future humans time traveling, trying to figure out how to
I look
fix the
at it.
reproduction.
I look at it really logically, and thinking, okay, we have this information that this universe is so massive that there are all these stars out there that are very similar to our star, the sun, right? If the amount of those stars and planets is infinite, we can't even count them, then it's logical to think, okay, there's most likely a planet that's far enough away from that star to not get burned up, but close enough to that star to where it keeps them warm,
Well-
that created life in some way.
to add to that,
you know what I mean?
says that life can only exist with the circumstances we have on Earth? How do we know that life couldn't evolve to be able to survive on harsher climates, harsher environments?
Now, once
too,
again, you're getting really hypothetical. I'm just going off of logic of what we know. There's bound to be other life forms out there that are similar enough
Or
to
carbon
us,
based. There could be
or
like
carbon-
silicon based
yes.
life forms, things like that.
That's what I mean by aliens. But, I don't know.
And how do we know they don't look like humans? They could
exactly.
be humans too.
I have no idea. But I do believe there's life outside of our solar
Do
system.
you think that the government has made contact with aliens? Or do you think this? Do you think the government has more
I don't-
information than we have?
I think
I don't want
You
to.
definitely believe in the cover up.
I don't want to dive into that stuff because I just don't have any backing to it. But if we know that our own government has lied and covered up so many
Terrible things, yeah.
minuscule things, terrible things that they've done in history, we know that the government has covered up this much stuff.
We know they have more top
Isn't it
secret
logical?
files than they have
Exactly.
anything
Isn't
else.
it logical for us to think if they did find contact, if they did, they're not going to tell us about it? So I personally think they have. I personally think.
Do you think they've reverse engineered their technology and some of our advancements have been based off that, or that they have that hidden somewhere and that they're developing something we don't know about that would
Maybe.
appear alien to us?
Maybe.
I think that
And they've
the
just
powers that
slowly
be,
trickled out the technology to make it look
What was
like
it?
this
Well,
stuff.
happened
Maybe this is
organically.
Jones says Jones, for example, whatever you think of Alex Jones.
Just a
Yeah, I mean,
fucking
whatever you
idiot.
think about Alex Jones, he's got fucking great, entertaining.
He's
conspiracies.
funny. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he's hilarious.
Anyways, he says he's like, they give you this, Joe. This is the crap they let you have. Smartphones, this technology. This is probably, and then he showed, and this is true actually, the very VR headsets you can buy off the shelf right now. They have blueprints of them that came from the late 1950s, early 1960s. That's actually, they have blueprints for them, and now you can buy them off the shelf. That would say that they're 40, 50 years ahead of where we are.
I mean,
the government, who the powers that be, not the
I
government.
mean, let's
powers that be.
that's going down crazy rabbit holes and things. Which
Well, that's
I'm
what we're
not
doing
saying-
right now, though. It's
I'm not
fun.
saying that that's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm saying we just need to look at our own world history, right? We have so many ancient civilizations that were doing things that are unexplainable. That
Building
people,
pyramids.
that people
We couldn't do today.
Couldn't do today. How did they do it? Those are the questions I bring up because they have stuff behind them like whether they have some Area 51, something like.
I think
Wait,
Area
dude,
51
what's
is
his
just a
name?
cover
I-
story.
I
Name
don't
work
know.
there?
What I know is the pyramids are not only were they built, but they were built in alignment with these
Yep.
celestial things to a fine point. Like,
It's
and
weird.
these are
It's
ancient
eerie.
civilizations that had no technology, that didn't have anything we
An
have,
understanding of science that like we
that
would
we don't
give
even
them
come
credit
close.
for.
So, what propelled them to that? How were they able to? And people, of course, always think of Egypt or whatever. Yes, Egypt, the Great Pyramids of Giza, and all those things are great. There are pyramids all
over the
across
world.
the world.
You know what else is weird about this? Now
And
this gets
so
into
it's
the
like,
this
how
gets
do
into
you
like the clockwork
explain that,
elves and
dude? How do you
demons and
explain
shit
that?
territory. But when you look at all these pyramids,
I don't know
that,
what a clockwork elf is, by the way.
oh yeah, it's fucking Alex Jones shit.
I-
But let me get into it. So hold on, real quick. So the pyramids go up everywhere around the world, different cultures. There's even like stories that like there was newspapers in the early 1900s where they discovered pyramids in the Grand Canyon and all this stuff. Anyways, but so who knows about that? But there is pyramids all over the world, like South America. You got it in Egypt, which is the Middle East. You got them all over the world. And then wherever these pyramids are, there's like human sacrifice, where human beings, these great societies, start like throwing babies into fires and mouths of, or into different things at these pyramid sites. So a lot of people think that it's like human beings of like in the past, it has nothing. So it might not even have to do with aliens. It might have to do with something different, like interdimensional beings, like demons and things like that. That they're in contact with through like
Bohemian
drugs and
Grove.
rituals and shit. And the reason that they all end up doing the same shit, like sacrificing babies, is because they're actually in communication with the same entities.
Isn't
from
that
different
that
dimensions,
ayahuasca
which is
drug?
interesting.
Like,
do you
when
believe in interdimensional aliens by
well,
chance,
Matt, isn't
or do
it?
you think it's possible? Let me put it that way.
Well, when they do that, what was the drug where they all do it and they all trip the same thing?
DMT.
Is it DMT? I
It's
thought it was
DMT.
like ayahuasca.
I think
Ayahuasca is
ayahuasca
DMT.
kind of does the same thing.
Where they all,
Ayahuasca is the
which is
same
weird
thing.
but
because you
ayahuasca
drink
is
it.
natural, whereas DMT was like man-made.
Well,
wasn't it?
it's natural
like
too,
chemical.
but you have to like extract it from these different, like from any organism, because human beings, we release DMT naturally whenever we sleep.
Isn't it weird
at
that's
night.
illegal?
But it's
even
a
though?
small
To your
quantity.
question, I don't know. I don't know. I guess.
I mean,
enough
but have you
about
heard
it.
that theory?
Yeah, I've definitely heard that theory, and who knows? But it is, once again, just looking at it even logically without even diving into it, isn't it curious to think that all these pyramids were put in certain places and built a certain ways and done all these things? Like, it's
in
just
the
very,
Bible,
very curious.
in the book of Ezekiel, it says that Ezekiel like witnessed the sky open up and this like these different. He said like it was like 4, I think, like wheels, like flaming wheels fell from the sky and like crash landed on the earth, and that like these 4 like, angels came out of the things and they had glass domes. It said glass expanses over their heads, and that they had 4 different faces, like a TV screen or something. And it says that they gave him a what did it say? It said they gave him a seed or something like that he had to ingest, and then when he ingested it, he had like all this knowledge and information like downloaded into his brain. Isn't that interesting? There's weird like alien stories in all the different holy texts, and in tons of different like hieroglyphs and things like that, like different alien stories where they show like on Egypt's walls, like pyramid walls, like helicopters and planes and interesting things like that.
I mean, there's so much stuff. I don't know. It once again, it scares me to think about it. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is straight up unexplainable.
It's very interesting.
There's no
What about
answer.
Bigfoot? Are you a squatcher?
No,
No, me neither. I'm not a big squatcher. at
I
all.
think we've conquered enough of the earth that if there was a Bigfoot, we would have found.
I think the
found
only
him.
thing that makes sense when it comes to Bigfoot is that it could be like some like still living tribe of like ancient like human ancestors, like Gigantopithecus or those
Yeah,
different
but where
ones.
would they be? We've
I know.
decimated the entire.
Yeah, I'm not saying
Amazon,
I believe it. I'm just saying that's the
you
most
know, like
realistic story.
yeah, but I don't think they exist anymore. If that's the case, I think they're all dead.
There's that argument where Trump became president, and the reason why he started the Space Force is because he got intel on all the alien stuff, and he's like, we have nothing to fight this, so he started.
Well, I think Trump's he's looking for he's a humanist, so he's looking for a big picture thing. He wants humans to get their mind off of smaller issues and get focused on space and the space program like they were in the 60s.
What do you think about? With that said, what do you think about the flat earthers?
The flat earthers? I'll tell you this. I don't believe the Earth is flat.
There's weird
personally.
stuff about it though.
But there is some
There's
interesting
some stuff
shit.
that makes me like
Wonder, scratch my head.
almost wonder. Yeah.
Like when they say like when you're looking through like a telescope or something, and you can still see a shift that's over 60 miles out, and it should be over the curvature of the
Right,
Earth
but I think
by
that's-
mathematical standards.
Right. I think the math is just wrong in that sense.
Yeah.
Or what about what is it when you go from like L.A. to New York? It's the same amount of time from going to New York to L.A. even though you're going against the.
Against the revolving
I think
Yeah.
we're underestimating how large
Earth is.
the Earth is. I think that's the big part. The biggest thing that gets me thinking that it kind of freaks me out to think about is Antarctica and how
I know that's the biggest flat
no
Earth one.
you know,
no one's. We're not allowed to go there.
can't go there.
Mm-hmm.
No one's gone all the way around it.
And then the few government programs that have like gone there, they're like given weird names.
It
Like
just doesn't make sense.
they
to
talk
me.
about like Project High Jump, where they had to get over this giant ice wall. Essentially,
Exactly.
That the flat earthers say is the ice wall that holds all the water.
and
in the
so
planet.
it's like
Interesting. And then
that
fishbowl.
stuff kind of just
You know why?
makes you think.
You know why? Because they found that thing and they're just keeping it contained over there.
Who knows?
Some people think there was like a secret Nazi base there, and the Nazis still like exist to this date and things like that.
You know, there's a movie about
Which
that.
is true. Which is actually fact that the Nazis did go to Antarctica.
Yeah, no, they did.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about it, like, there's all this stuff about it. We would have to see some kind of commerce because you can't survive there on the land alone.
Unless it's not just ice and there's something else there.
No, yeah, beyond it. Sure,
Yeah.
sure. I don't know.
Maybe there's like some fucking utopia there, like Antarctica or
Who knows?
Atlantis or something.
But once again, you know, one logic points to like, okay, well, if the sun and moon are round, why
Are we flat?
It's logical to think we are also round.
It
that
is
was
weird.
some of the big,
That's true.
conceptual ideas that were developed early in.
Yeah.
When humans started to explore, like,
Well, people-
think conceptually of the stars and space. Those are easy concepts to think.
One other thing, too.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Solar eclipses.
Uh-huh.
It shows
Blocks the ring.
crescent moons and things like that.
Yeah.
That only a round object can create.
What
A
if
flat
you-
object wouldn't create that same shape.
What if you went into space and then like looked down and the Earth was actually a disc shaped like flat with a dome over it? What would you do? Would you be like, oh shit, like, I was deceived?
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It further pushes the question. Okay, if it is this flat disc, what's under it? Where
Yeah.
are we? What kind of
Maybe it's like a
a simulation.
Are we a
Us?
floating disc?
Yeah.
Like,
maybe it's like us, where it's just like an alternate. It's like the same.
The other
thing,
side, but
it's
different
like-
history.
Yeah.
That'd be weird.
yeah, that's crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's another movie on Netflix that's called like Other Planet or something like that, and it's kind of like that. It's dimensional. So each
Dimensionally tiered, a little bit
dimensional
different.
Earths, and like people can travel to each different one, and like
It's interesting.
It's weird, definitely weird.
What other interesting conspiracies are there? I do think the flat Earth one's interesting though. I don't like to just call them crazy and not look into what they're. And that's true of
But
anyone.
some of the
Some of them are
people
crazy, yeah.
come with like, okay, these are the things that we've discovered. I totally could get with it.
Yeah.
But anyone who does it, no offense, but from a biblical standpoint, it's like, okay, dude,
Mm-hmm.
you can't just say the scripture told us this. Like, you got to come with.
Yeah, you
with
gotta have an
some-
actual
like, okay,
substance.
the curvature, fine, fair point. Antarctica, fair point.
Mm-hmm.
Up top, and certain pictures being CGI'd. Okay, fair enough.
We gotta get Eddie Bravo here.
Yeah, Bravo.
exactly.
He would love that. Man,
Oh
we
my
should invite
God,
him. See if he'll do
Bravo.
it.
Jeez.
Damn, I wouldn't wanna-
He's a little too skeptical for
He
me.
is, yeah. I
He's
love
just-
him.
Every
I love him,
picture
though.
of the Earth is
He's
CGI
funny. He's funny
as hell.
composited.
Yeah.
But Bohemian Grove, I think, is a.
Have you heard of
interesting-
Bohemian Grove?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a real thing. I mean-
People, man, if people knew about that.
It's fucking weird, man.
Well, it's funny because it's like in history, Anglo-Saxons, like Anglo people, have always called indigenous people like savages. They do these things. They don't have
Rituals
anything.
and
It's like these rich white people are into
doing
the
the same thing.
shit.
Yeah, it's
They're
weird.
worshiping some weird god.
Molech, yep.
Doing some weird shit.
You know, Molech
God-
comes from like, it's like a Mayan or something god too.
Yeah, that's what
that
I'm
they were
saying, like-
sacrificing humans to, and then they do it at Bohemian
Yeah.
Grove. The mock human baby they throw in the mouth.
Maybe
of
my
Yeah,
friend
we
Molech.
Lucas-
can mock.
Yeah,
We don't- They probably do some real shit.
They probably do some real
My
shit.
friend
Animals.
Lucas and I were
No,
planning
they
on
probably,
like.
dude, there's enough missing children in the world. I guarantee.
They probably
they
could get
kill
away with
real
it
kids.
easy.
Absolutely.
What do you think about Bilderberg? Speak of the devil. Have you ever heard
The
of
what?
Bilderberg? That's like it's like Bohemian Grove, except for instead of just being an American thing, it's like a global thing. That
Oh, I haven't
all these
heard about
world
that
leaders
one.
come. It's different than Bohemian Grove in that there's no, well, not that I'm aware of rituals and stuff, but Elon Musk claims to have gone there like a couple times, and he said that every time he goes there, all they talk about how AI is gonna like take over humanity, and that they're gonna come out with like some new like Bible to like worship this AI god, and that the AI is gonna like exterminate humanity.
Are you gonna get the
and
chip?
that they're gonna be in charge of it and all this crazy stuff. And he said like to like beware those people. He says because these are like world leaders. These are like 170 IQ people that go to.
Well,
this
it's
meeting.
not even smart people. We got to understand, like, again, what we were talking about before. Like, yeah, voting for the president is like important and smart for us as Americans in our small kind of thing. But who really controls the world? It's these top
The puppet master,
executives, people who own massive, huge companies. Those are the people who really pull the strings.
And it's not
on-
outlandish to
on
think
what's
that
going on.
really really billionaires and all these things like they meet and they plan things.
Absolutely.
And that shapes
Why
the
wouldn't
world
they?
history. That's what
Why
I think.
wouldn't they plant seeds in places to where legislation and laws and borders will help them make more money? I mean, why is that
and
so
get more.
outlandish?
And when you're a billionaire, it stops being about money and it starts being more about power.
Power. That's
feel
what I
like.
mean. Power. You know.
Yeah. So money.
Why is
power.
that
They need
such a,
money
like-
to have power.
yeah.
So they have to have both.
People think
But-
that's like some crazy idea. It's like,
Crackpot theory. Yeah.
bro, some people call it Illuminati, but it's true. The powerful people control what's going on.
Are you
It's
gonna?
not-
some
Are you
weird
gonna?
shit.
Politicians make you feel good, make you feel fuzzy and warm inside because
Yep.
you think you're doing something, but in reality,
Yeah. These people are
these
pulling the
people
strings.
are pulling the strings. My little thing, my little protest, my whatever is doing nothing.
Are you gonna get the chip, Matt?
Do you know what he's talking about? Referring to?
I don't know what he's talking about.
He's talking about the
for
Mark of the
instance.
Beast chip.
No, I know Mark of the Beast, but is there a
Yeah.
chip that they're projecting?
Well, I feel like we're making steps towards it with the Elon Musk chip in the head.
It's called
no,
Neuralink.
Fuck no.
No, fuck no. But they're saying that's going to be the future of like you're not going to have this anymore. You're going to have the brain chip that where you no longer have to use your thumbs to communicate. It's going to be direct neural interlink between people. And
I'm
that's-
kind of on the same boat
you
as
know
his
what's
grandpa
interesting
about
about
it.
the Bible though is the Book of Revelations talks about this thing, and then now it's rolling out. So either one or two things going on: either Bible prophecy is being fulfilled, or so the Bible
but-
was right. Well, listen, or somebody's like taking the script in the Bible and then trying to bring it into reality. Either way, Bible prophecy is being fulfilled.
Yeah, but
no
you
matter
got
which way
to
look at it.
understand the Bible wasn't written at the beginning of time.
It was being 2,000 years ago, though.
Yeah, but the Bible isn't.
Revelations has
where
been
did
up
that-
thousands of years. That's one
I
of
mean,
the
it's
oldest
proved
ones.
like. Once again, I don't want to get into it because we'll talk about the Mark of the Beast, but
Mm.
it's been proven that Judeo-Christian religion is pulled from Egyptian religion because that's where the people were from.
You're talking about like Horus representing
Yeah, I mean, it's the
Jesus and all
same.
that?
It's all the same stuff. So to say the Bible is saying certain
Well, it's very
things-
similar. It's not
It's-
identical, but it's similar.
Well, of course, because you have these people that are a higher class that worship a certain way, and we're a lower class, and we don't. We have to use the education we have, which is from those people from the higher class, but we don't want it the same because fuck those people, because we're, a lower class than them and they're a higher class. So we've created our own that's similar but different. You know what I mean? It's like
I know, but when it comes to Revelations, I still think it's interesting how Mark of the Beast, all that stuff is like kind of like beginning to make sense now, like how that could be. Like it says, like if you don't receive the mark, you won't be able to buy or sell. So if you don't,
And see, that's
if your
my
bank's
point.
tied into the Neuralink chip in your brain and you can't go buy anything without it.
Well, the
then
That
you're
was my
started
point.
at.
That was
Neuralink
my-
chip is a little bit different. Like if you're quadriplegic, like this will give you access.
exactly.
But
that
that's
was
what
my
I'm
point to
yeah.
like where I was saying about his grandpa and in his podcast is I'm all for technology helping people who need the help. If you have a neurological disorder or problem, or they talk about having prosthetics that can still move when you think.
Yeah, I was talking
squeeze
about
my
something different.
hand.
Yeah,
it
I was talking about
squeezes,
Mark of the Beast.
things like that. But it's when they force you. You can't barter. You can't buy.
That's
you
weird.
can't do anything without this. That might be crossing. And
Yeah.
once again, if we just look at it in our own history, it's unconstitutional.
Yeah.
You can't force someone to do this.
So something
You know
radical
what
is
I
going to
mean?
have to happen in order for it to be.
Do you
allowed.
think? Do you think the
Right. I don't
COVID
think it's
vaccine is
gonna
going to be
happen in
the?
our lifetime.
Do you think the
I hope
COVID
not,
vaccine is
yeah.
going to be the first step to that? Like,
Well, a lot of
What?
people think the vaccine is the mark because now they have these genetic.
I don't know if I
fucking
think
vaccines.
Oh,
and
are
all
you
this
talking about the
crap.
Bill Gates thing where he wants to not chip children, but then you look at the blueprint and it looks like a legit chip with like little tiny screws?
It was this. No, it's interesting. It's called work order world because it's WO and then it's WO. And then it's 060606 is the actual patent on the this vaccine technology that like changes your DNA to make you immune, but it also like you
That's
can.
what Trump got because he got the COVID, and he said it in his speech that he's immune now.
Well, he got the Regeneron, the
Yeah, he's an idiot.
therapy.
He's not immune.
Huh? Well, yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, shit. We don't know what Regeneron does. I don't know what it does personally, but
He
it's
has
like
the
some
mark of the beast,
pilot
then.
program.
He has the mark of the beast.
I don't think he does, but I don't think it's out yet. I think it's in the works though.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen in our lifetime. Maybe our.
But do you
grand-
think?
But you
the
do think
mo-
it could happen?
Oh yeah.
That's interesting.
I mean,
Because I mean, it's the ultimate control. When
it's
you have,
control. It has to me. It has nothing to do biblically. It's.
But what if it
it's
does line up with the
ultimately-
Bible? Doesn't that kind of confirm the Bible?
Once again, who created the Bible? I'm skeptical on who even created the Bible. So, you know,
But when the mark
it's
of
not
the
a
beast
valid
happens,
question for me to answer because I just don't.
but I think for
think
people that
the
are
Bible-
skeptical in the Bible, that kind of shy away from it, whatever. When you see something like that that's in the Bible 2,000 years ago, that then manifests into modern day reality, and it says it's going to happen, and then it does. That should at least give you a red flag. At least light something up in your brain. where
Well,
you're like,
I
shit,
mean,
maybe
it's
they were
just
onto something.
self-fulfilling prophecies, just like you said. Is it? So is it happening? And the Bible warned us, or is?
But either
people
way, it didn't happen, though.
Using the Bible story to get ideas or to do it. You know what I mean? Like,
But listen, but real quick, either way though, the prophecy was fulfilled. So I mean, that's the interesting thing is either way it came true. No matter how you look at it, it's fucking weird. Even if someone is doing, taking the script that the Bible left and then bringing it into reality or making it real, then making it actually happen. Either way, it confirms that it came true, right? I mean, 2,000 years later.
well,
Doesn't
once
matter how
again,
it's done.
I don't know, or I
Kind of a
know
paradox.
I hear what you're saying, but what I'm saying is I think it would be more about controlling masses amount of people and less.
Well,
about
definitely. I bet you that.
your what is it called? Your like, afterlife or what you believe in. I think it's more about like, hey, I need to control this massive amount of people, so I need to develop a way for them to have to use me for banking, for social work, for health, for anything. They have to use
To get
this
a
shit.
job.
Well, think about it,
To
man.
get a
You'll
job,
Matt,
to survive,
Matt,
yeah.
you'll never lose your debit card again.
Debit card. Oh, okay. I see what you mean, yeah.
It'd just be in your hand.
Well, you already got Apple Pay now and all
And
that.
even cards. I have a card that you just tap too. So I just hit my wallet and
Oh, that's dope. Okay, I like that.
What about 5G?
5G, well, it's coming out, whether we like it or not. I mean,
Do you
I'm
think
so
I'd-
conflicted though because I don't know what is true.
Well, that's the
Yeah.
thing.
I've seen like those things where like
Birds
the
are just.
tree is right next to the 5G
5G tower
tower
is
and it's
dead.
all dead. It's like, okay, I don't know if that's true. Or not.
yeah, we don't know, and we all don't know what season it was and why there's.
Or the birds are just like. Do you ever see that video?
Well, I think that Wi-Fi and LTE technology or 4G, whatever you want to call it, is having some effect on bees. They can feel the effect of it because they're so small and these
No,
little
no,
vibrations make a
I
difference.
think there is, but
so. I think
you
5G is more powerful. It's just gonna kill more bees, and this way I see it. I mean, so if you do that,
and then
I
in
mean,
so facto kill us.
yeah,
We
exactly.
can't pollinate our food or crops.
Isn't it like even your phone radiates radiation, but not to
It
an
is. It's
extent that.
electromagnetic.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
why they don't.
EMF radiation.
That's why, like testicular cancer went up. because,
Testicular
like,
cancer.
Yeah,
Well, every cancer went up a lot.
Because if you just put your phone in your pocket, it's right next to your.
Your
Well, I
nuts.
don't know if it's that, if that's the case.
Yeah.
Or just
Well, I mean, there's
in general, the things in our technology have created more
Radiation.
radiation and
Radioactivity.
radioactivity in our atmosphere in general, and has created higher risk of cancer and things like that. Who knows? I mean, that stuff is all on the table. It terrifies me to think about.
It does.
And I
Our
hope
5G
I'm
is-
long dead before we figure it out.
Yeah.
If it's my great grandchildren that have to deal with it, good for you. See you later.
Hey, I tried to fight it. I
even
I
try
talked
to-
about it.
I don't try to wrap my
Trump's
brain
for
around it.
5G.
I know that's one thing I don't like about. I don't agree with that stance of his. I didn't like that.
Well,
when he
I guess
brought
a
that
good
up.
question
He
is-
wants to roll out. He sees the economic benefit of it.
Yeah.
He's big
Where
on
does-
economics. Which
where
is,
do we
he's
go
a businessman.
forward with technology progressing? Wouldn't 5G be inevitable?
No, because
matter-
this
It's
is
hard
why.
for us to go anywhere.
This is why I say no to 5G, because in Israel, which is much smaller, so they have fiber optics. So they went a step ahead of 5G, and fiber optic cables are like 100 or 10 times faster than 5G and don't emit any radiation at all. So they have that, and that's quicker than 5G, more advanced than 5G, better than 5G, a lot more expensive than 5G, however. So that's probably why we're not going to go that route. Also, because we've been bombarded with 5G. That's the next big thing. So we probably won't go that route.
We
But
had fiber optics
if we
in
wanted
Denver.
the best, fiber optic would be better.
Yeah, we had fiber optics. Denver was I believe it was like one of the pilot cities for CenturyLink's fiber optic system. And so we had fiber optic internet in Denver.
Speaking of Denver,
And so it was like,
what do you think about
fast.
the Denver airport conspiracy? Ever heard
Bro,
of that? That's
oh yeah, of
freaky as
course.
hell. Yeah,
I haven't heard that one. What is
place
that?
you
is
never heard of that?
crazy.
They basically
Is
built
it the one with the
terrifying.
statues in it?
weird
It
statues.
has weird statues, but the
paintings.
paintings are weird. There's like little plaques everywhere that say really weird
Shit,
things.
isn't there like a big like red? It's like a black horse with red eyes, and it's
Oh yeah,
like a
Lucifer. We
sculpture.
call it Lucifer.
Oh really?
That one's that's new. Like I don't think that one has anything to do with the conspiracies.
Well, the conspiracy theories or the theorists say
It
that
did kill the artist though.
they say the Denver airport was because it's this massive fucking airport, huge, and then they have all this weird paintings, weird artwork and stuff. They think that Denver is gonna be like the new HUD of like the New World Order, and that they know that there's some seismic event that's about to happen at Yellowstone that's gonna like completely like it's gonna be a super volcano eruption that's gonna like destroy the country, and that their new area base of operations is gonna be the Denver airport.
They do know there's certain things that we know through public record. We know that Denver International Airport is the largest airport per square mile
Huge.
in the world, in North America and in the world. It's the largest land owning.
Isn't there a massive tunnel system too underneath
Well,
it?
I'm getting to that.
Yeah.
We know through public record that they have over a dozen 30-story buildings built around and under the DIA from the ground down. Right? So they're all underground.
Underground.
These
Weird.
huge capsule or, basically buildings underground. All this space underground.
Like, what are they doing, man? It's
The
weird.
third one that really gets you going is leaders all over the world through satellite companies that they own or whatever, for whatever reason, all own property around DIA, which is Denver International Airport.
It's the New World Order headquarters.
So the Queen of England they've tracked property to her, the Saudi princes and all them fools to them. Because what you don't know if you don't know Colorado is we had Stapleton International Airport in the city for many decades or whatever. But the big argument was that it couldn't house the giant, 747, the largest planes. The airport was too small to house those. And they really wanted to be a place where you can fly direct to anywhere in the world. So like Denver today, you can fly to Germany, you can fly to Italy, you can fly to any place in the world directly. You don't have to stop anywhere because of that. But when they did this, they built this airport 25 miles outside of the city. I mean, it's out on the plains. It's not in, like, people think Colorado, but when they go land in Colorado, you're out on the, like, kind of like Eastern Washington. It's flat, kind of rolly hillies type stuff. And they did all this construction, and they had these time like, oh yeah, it's going to be done then. Had to put it out 2 more years. Had to put it out 2 more years. It was this huge thing. Why? Because they were building this giant infrastructure from below. But what
What are they
Matt was
planning?
getting at is on the inside of DIA, there's all these weird artwork and things around that you can walk around and look at, just like any, like SeaTac has all the salmon on
Or the new
ground
casino,
and,
they
like,
have all the artwork up and all that.
yeah, it's like different things, right? But this stuff is kind of has a story to it because it's very like, I don't know.
It's like weird, like it paints.
New-
it has this dude, like
Yeah,
one
like-
of them, in a gas mask with a sight.
It shows like a timeline of like all these people living together. Then this army dude comes in,
Yeah, with a gas mask,
with
yep.
this giant sword, and it's like
green
all the
fog.
people are dying. Like literally, it has children dead, dying, and then it
weird.
has all like it's kind of like Disney's what's it called? It's a Small World. After all, it's a Small World ride. All the children in these depictions are all from different countries and different ethnicities.
That's what I'm saying. It's the New World Order. It's all about
it coming together,
globalism.
and this military-looking guy is killing all these people
with like some plague or something.
And there's a dead kid. This is true story, bro. You can see it.
You can look up the artwork.
You can look it up, and you can even see it because they don't take them down. There's a picture of like a dead child with all the other children around him, like mourning
sick
them,
and gray, and
they take, basically it shows this revolution of how these people go in and kill or destroy the military guy, and then they're all in this utopia of everyone together, and they break apart the sword and they melt it down. It's really weird, and it's depicted on these giant, like huge 10 feet tall murals.
Yeah. I've never been there, so I haven't seen it myself.
Pieces.
Have you actually physically seen it?
Yeah, I'm from there. Fly in and out of there my whole life.
Yeah.
Well, they finished it in
What's the energy
They finished
like
it in 1995.
Is it eerie?
No, because you're so used to it.
Yeah.
But when you
desensitized, you might say.
When you're just passing by, when you actually sit down and look and read and look at all the stuff, then you start to wonder, like, what the fuck is going on?
Who came up with this shit?
Like, they have a plaque there that out in the open, it just says this international is a beacon designed for the literally says New World Order. Like, it literally says it on there.
Weird. You know that? You ever see H.W. Bush talking about the New World Order?
And it's just sitting there. It's out in the open. And they have like all these gargoyles statues placed sporadically around the airport with different plaques saying.
So with all that, like with that at the airport, with Bohemian Grove and all this stuff, where does that put you on the sense of like beliefs? Like Matt's Christian, like where?
Well, I don't connect it to anything biblically. What I connect it to is power and the struggle for power, but also the knowledge of, hey, something might be going down in the not too distant future. We need to create this
they
place
know about
that we
they're
are
planning
protected
for.
in.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the way I see it.
I think they're
I don't see it in
planning.
any.
They're planning to get control of humanity, and the way they're going to do it is by doing something like orchestrating some huge like World War III or something that kills a bunch of people, and then
false flags.
Yeah, false flags, and they're going to come out as the peacekeepers, even though they're the ones that actually plan the whole thing that's going to kill billions. They're going to come out and say, "But we have the solution for you. We're going to save you," and that's what the utopia at the end is supposed to symbolize. Even though it's not going to be a utopia, it's going to be very dark, some Black Mirror shit.
Once again, I hope I'm dead. I hope I'm not around when any of this happens. So good luck to my grandchildren and great grandchildren if they're around.
Yeah, it's super interesting.
It's very weird. You should look it up. It's on YouTube. There's little like videos about it.
I remember. I know a conspiracy. That's why I brought up before you guys even talked about the statue, because I heard something about an airport and they have weird statues.
I think we should tear down those statues. Those are the ones I think we should tear down.
It's really weird. They just have these strange like not monuments.
Do you think
like,
that like because we've kind of lived in this time period where, I mean, there was World War II, and then there was like kind of like, you know, like we're in a time now where like I don't have to worry about getting drafted or anything. Like everything's very kind of like peaceful per se, you know, like you got
for
the
Americans,
you got the politics and whatnot, but overall it's like everything's pretty peaceful. Like do you think, how long do you think we can maintain that before like something like that does happen? Or
I mean, Matt might share my opinions a bit, but I think there's no question. I know there's talks like, oh, China and Russia and all this. I don't think there's any question that we're the big dog in the yard, right? Like we're the big man on campus. The United States is the powerhouse of the world. And I think as Americans living in within our bubble, I don't think we have to worry about anything like that. Our government, the people who American interest is what controls all these small parts. You know, we didn't like who was running a country, so we dethroned that person with helping a rebellion. And those people who are now in control are in line with our interests. We've done it across the board, you know, like Bin Laden was one of our CIA agents. We were giving Bin Laden money and firearms so he can fight the Soviets because we don't like the spread of communism and for whatever reason. And all those things. They're all part of our kind of machine. So as Americans, I don't think there's much we have to worry about. I think.
So how we hit that like?
I think the
piece-
biggest-
the
Once
think the-
again, proof is in the pudding. Like I said, look at how we're able to live as Americans. I mean,
We can bitch about little things like tranny restrooms and shit like
exactly.
that.
Like, we can
That's how
bitch about
good we
all
have
this
it.
Stuff,
Yeah.
Until you go to an actual third world country, you don't know shit. And so, being someone who has seen third world countries, especially being someone who has seen them in the mid '90s when it was like really bad, you know,
I'm gonna take this.
those
Be right back.
those
Pull
are
that
the
phone.
kinds of things that I don't think we have to worry about as Americans, truly. And if those kind of situations are knocking on our door, we have way bigger problems. Way bigger problems. That's when it's going to be like world-ending, catastrophic events happening.
Do you think that like with the stuff going on at the airport and stuff, like kind of prophesizing and whatnot, do you think something like that could actually come into fruition in your own kind of personal opinion?
Well, I think pop culture and media is funny as once again, in my personal opinion, I think they give us little tidbits of what they know, like the powers that be. Like, is it weird that in Batman, in the last Batman, Christopher Nolan Batman, on the map that they're showing the cops that shows Sandy Hook, it says Sandy Hook or whatever on there. Like, I don't know if you've looked into that, but like there's all these like Easter eggs.
I've seen the Simpsons stuff.
Yeah, like the Simpsons stuff. There's all kinds of different things. I think people there's whistleblowers that kind of release information here and there and people run with it. But once again, we're in a system where we don't know what's real. We don't know what's fake. We don't know anything really, if you really think about it. And so it's hard to tell, but yeah, I mean, I guess it could come true. I would imagine. I could only imagine the worst of things that could happen. You know, with the kind of technology our military and other militaries have, I can only imagine what is possible to make lives worse for people.
What do you think you would do in like a kind of a high position of power? Maybe you're the one who's invited to that airport and stuff. If something goes wrong, do you think you would kind of like?
I mean, if I was ever like that kind of powerful, I guess I would be part of the machine, and I would think trying to save myself and my family and people I care about would be the only thing I have.
That's like Kingsman. Do you ever see the first Kingsman where they turn on like the
yeah, exactly.
But all the rich
people have
and
that
people
chip or whatever that doesn't get them to kill other people. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I would do in that situation. I want to think that I would be virtuous enough
to make the right
to
decision,
do the right thing.
but
if I'm in that position, I've already gotten to that position by doing sketchy shit.
Yeah.
You know, no one gets to that kind of power.
I would
killing some
personally
people.
invest in a science that enlarges spiders and just
That would be dope.
that would be amazing.
If we, in reality, I think you make a good point. If we knocked ourselves off of being the highest animal on the food chain, we would change a lot of the things we do. You know what I mean? It would bring us to. If we had a common enemy, it would bring us together as people.
Who was the presidents where they said like, oh, if aliens ever came, would you kind of?
I can't remember. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, but
someone famous has said like it would be good if the aliens came because it would bring humans together.
Yeah.
Because of common enemy. You know what I mean? We've seen it in pop culture and comics. You know, like what we were just talking about earlier, The Watchmen. That's what they did in that movie. They thought, okay, if we make everyone think that Dr. Manhattan is the enemy, then we're friends with Russia now because we
No
have
more
a
nuclear
common
conflict.
enemy.
Yep.
And so that's true, and that's how false flags work, right? 9/11 is arguably was created on our own people did this. Our own government did this, right?
It's crazy to think how many people are unaware of Tower 7.
Yeah,
It's crazy to think that people who watched the buildings live, like myself, would ever think that would happen. If you look at across the board, totally across the board, all the plane wrecks in history that we've seen, there has been a wing here, an engine there, seats, all these things. but all of a sudden on 9/11, we're just supposed to think that planes completely disappear, that they just disintegrate into nothing. That to me does not make sense. The plane in Pennsylvania that crashed,
Yep.
the supposedly the one that hit the Pentagon.
I don't believe that one at all. I
How,
don't think anything hit the
other
Pentagon.
than the ones I watched on the freaking screen, I understand after the buildings came down, there was no plane pieces left. But all those other ones, there's no engines, wings, seats,
Nothing. Just a scar in the earth, they
A
said.
scar in the earth? That is bullshit. Dude.
That is totally bogus.
We've seen huge planes nosedive into the ground in Russia and like commercial planes crashing. There's pieces of the plane everywhere.
And then you got H.W. Bush like 8 years later saying, "Oh, we see a good opportunity for a new world order," all this stuff. And then his son gets in, and then that happens, and then out of an office drawer, the Patriot Act comes out. Total misleading name, but that is what set up the TSA.
Yep. So that now they
that.
get to monitor us.
Yep.
Because of this false flag.
Yep.
And it's supposed to make us feel good. Oh no, we're not monitoring you. We're monitoring
The
terrorists.
terrorists. Yep. No,
So
it's all about
it's
control.
all pieces. And so, though, once again, I'm a patriot in the sense that I believe in our country in a sense of
Racist.
our people, and I want to believe that those people didn't die for nothing. I guess I want to say, but it's hard to say that it didn't happen by our own people.
I think it was. I think it was absolutely plotted from within the country. I think what happened is that the terrorists were indirectly funded by the American government, and the Bin Laden family was actually friends with the Bushes, which that came out many years later.
No, they even knew it then.
Exactly. And the
He
Bin Laden was a
friends with-
billionaire.
HW had done more work with them in the Middle East before he was president than any, you know what I mean? He had long-standing relationships with these people in the Middle East, the Bin Ladens and a lot of people, not just the Bin Ladens.
And that's a dynasty family. I mean, that
Oh,
goes back.
absolutely.
H.W. Bush wasn't even the first Bush. It was Prescott, then H.W., then George W.
Well, no.
And then...
I mean, HW did the groundwork. His dad had
No,
some
but
money,
what I mean about Prescott is that Prescott was like the first one to be a big political figure. And that goes back, and he had like Nazi ties and stuff back in the 40s.
he wasn't huge, though. Not like HW. I agree with you. I'm just nitpicking.
Yeah.
To
but
me,
there was some weird...
he wasn't that huge of a political, not as much as HW.
Yeah, no, I agree
HW
with that.
changed
yeah.
the game.
Yeah, he was the
game.
biggest one because he was the one that ends up becoming the president.
Yeah.
So, the first one I should say.
I forgot what I was gonna say. But I will say that being only 1 year old during 9/11, yeah, I remember my teacher brought
That's
up.
scary.
He said we're gonna have now a generation who weren't even alive during 9/11,
Right.
and I just remember him being like all wicked out about that. Even though to me it's almost like as if I wasn't alive during it happening. Okay, yeah, I remember what I was gonna say.
I was at daycare. My mom
Bro,
was super
freshmen
scared.
in college right now weren't alive during 9/11.
That's weird. And they just hear it. To them, it's just history.
It's just history.
It's weird. They're like, oh, that's something that happened.
Freshmen
forever ago.
today, 18, 19 years old, were not alive during
Can you believe we still got troops over there? It's ridiculous. That's what I like about Trump pulling out the troops from Afghanistan, from these Middle Eastern countries, and putting an end to the conflict there. You know, that's something that
what I was gonna say
I
is,
think
did
anyone
you-
could get on board with this. You know,
did you see
finally
that-
getting us out of there.
I think I showed you. Yeah, I showed you it. The painting in Epstein's house of Bush
Yeah.
with
No,
the
Yeah.
paper planes,
Super
Because he
weird.
owns them. Yeah, that was really weird. That was
and then
really
Bill
weird.
Clinton in the dress.
Bill Clinton in the dress. Oh, that's right, because he
Yeah.
owns them. Yep. It wasn't the red dress, like the one
Yeah.
that. That's weird.
I do. What do you think is gonna happen with the Jelenia Maxwell chick?
Ghislaine Maxwell.
I don't know if they're gonna kill her like they did with Epstein.
I don't
because feel
think
like it'd
so.
be way too obvious if they
They
did.
just released her thing. You could read it in its entirety on TMZ.
Yeah, what's going on with that? Epstein didn't kill himself. Do you think
Oh,
Epstein
no.
killed himself?
Sorry.
No.
I think a lot of people know that Epstein didn't kill himself. Like that
Yeah.
just was way
That's-
too.
Yeah, public, way too obvious.
Plus the autopsy, the guy said that like this looks like strangulation. And do you see how he hung himself? It was like
It was all bogus.
with like it wasn't even like he like
a
hung
sheet.
himself from a ceiling or anything. It's just
Yeah.
like he tied it to the bed thing and just kind of like leaned down.
I know. I saw that. Yeah, that was eerie. And then coincidentally, all the cameras just went out.
off. It's like,
Oh, it's just
my
a
God.
system glitch. Yeah, I'm sure it was.
right,
Yeah, no,
right.
whoever believes
This
that's
guy
not-
had the
yeah,
list of all his
Yeah.
people who, he's gotten women for, kids for, all this shit.
Who do you think it was? That
Oh.
is behind it?
Everyone said the
me
Clintons. Everyone
personally,
said the Clintons.
not to jump into once again. I have no proof, but the arrow points at the Clintons. I think they've killed more people than they'd like to admit.
They suicided a lot of people.
I even heard the most interesting Clinton one, that theory that I heard was the JFK Jr. theory. Have you guys heard that one?
You mean in the plane and it was sabotage?
Yeah.
Tell me more. I didn't realize the Clintons were implicated.
Where did Hillary run for Senate first? Was in his district.
Oh, she never would beat
she
him.
knew that she would lose to him.
And he was super liked. Like he was super
everybody loved
charisma,
him, dude.
good looking guy.
They loved JFK Jr.
He would've
would have won hands down.
He wanted to go into acting, be a movie star.
And they say
I think Reagan was in movies too.
He
was.
Him. Yeah, Reagan was.
He was really popular.
That they killed him so she could get that seat.
Really? I believe it. I think there's a lot that goes into it. I also think that he wanted to get to the bottom of what happened to his dad. Because I still think that was a conspiracy as well. JFK.
Oh, absolutely.
There's so many things wrong with that. Like
so many things wrong.
Do you think there's more than one gunman?
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely. He got hit from multiple angles from the looks of it, and then also on top of that, I mean, there's just so much weird stuff with the autopsy.
It's another one of those things, just like the 9/11 pilots. The instructors for these pilots, are on record saying
they couldn't
have flown that thing. There's no way they could barely control this Cessna, all this stuff. Lee Harvey Oswald was a crackpot sniper. He was not good. None of his instructors ever said he was that.
And that was like a serious shot they had to make.
Dude, I've been there. I went to the museum.
Can't you stand where they...
Yeah, you stand. It's like, dude, a moving target at this angle and you only have this window of time. There's no way he would have done it.
They didn't even make up a good story.
How this random mafia-connected guy kills him the next day.
That was weird. That was weird. Have you seen the tape of that?
Come on, dude.
You've seen all the tape of that, right?
Yeah, yeah. You just shoot, it doesn't make sense.
I think the mafia was controlled as well, and they were just a tool, a weapon.
It was totally the government. Lyndon B. Johnson, I guarantee you, knew what was going to happen. Lyndon B. Johnson is one of the most closeted savages in our American political system.
He was a terrible racist.
He was racist. What I mean by savage is he truly didn't give a fuck. He would do it by any means necessary. And I think he was totally on board for the assassination and all that stuff. Because, of course, it put him into power.
Yep.
But do you think the Democrat politicians and people in higher power are more involved with the Epstein thing? I feel like it's on both sides.
I feel like it's just so many people are involved.
I don't know if it's politicians.
That they all.
I do think people are getting it wrong in the sense that they look at everyone who's on the flight logs and say pedophile, pedophile, pedophile. I don't know if I fully agree with that. Maybe watch them, but what happens if you're like, hey, because my friend Jeffrey, he could just take you to New York, just fine, just take his plane,
yeah,
you don't even have to meet the guy.
There's absolutely that. There's favors and hey, whatever. But I think people tend to forget that his business wasn't just pedophilia and fucking girls and stuff. He was a businessman. He owned property and businesses and all kinds of things. So there could have been very well many people on those flight logs that were just business partners or potential business partners or investors because he had his hand in all kinds of different stuff. He just...
Wasn't the Playboy guy? Or no, Victoria's Secret? He just kind of sold him a mansion for ridiculously low price.
Well, they were lovers.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, it's in the Netflix documentary about.
I don't remember that.
I couldn't even watch it
because it's argued that
shit too dark for me.
What about
the reason why the dude basically that guy was in love with Epstein and Epstein. Because he's kind of this weird asexual dude. He wasn't bisexual. He's just he was into all kinds of weird shit. Non-gender. He didn't care if it was guys or girls and things like that. And it's argued or presented he had some kind of relationship, sexual relationship or intimate relationship with
he was in some
guy,
weird shit. That's all I know.
Victoria's Secret guy. And that's why he gave him access to all this stuff. And when that situation went sour because Epstein wasn't into him anymore or whatever, is when that guy like sued him and tried to get money back and all kinds of
What
stuff.
do you think's gonna happen to Prince Andrew? I feel like that guy just buried himself in a deeper hole doing that one interview.
Well,
I just don't
what do you
understand
mean
why-
happened to him? I think he's not going to go to jail. I mean, he
I just-
might be shunned from the rest of the royal family, but he's still getting
Isn't that
money.
ridiculous how they get away with these crimes just because they're powerful?
Oh, yeah,
we need to
dude.
set a precedent and get somebody arrested. That's what one of the biggest critiques I have for Trump is that I voted for him because I wanted to see the corruption go away, and it's still there
know,
and prevalent.
man.
And I hope that he get hopefully after this term he gets that
A
solved.
good one you need to watch is on HBO called The Swamp, and it's all the people who got into office, both Democrats and Republicans, that followed his lead in the sense of they thought Trump was gonna empty the swamp. Like they're in there not for corporate gain, not for anything, but to actually get rid of all these
Drain the swamp.
corrupt politicians and stuff. And their critique was the same. Like they're just saying, like, we don't understand why he's not doing more for this.
I think he wants to get it done, but there's so much on his plate. Like you got the Democrats
trying
that
to win an
stonewall
election.
everything.
He's trying
Yeah,
to
he
win
needs
an
to win.
election.
I think if he wins this election, that's when we might see it. That's what I'm hoping for.
From what I've
Obviously,
heard,
can't tell the future, but we'll
and
see.
I could be wrong. You could correct me, buddy, but I've heard that presidents only do so much their first 4 years, and they come.
Well,
their
because a
second-
lot of
because
it's trying to
if
win.
they win,
again.
then they-
because they have to promise something more, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not going to accomplish all their goals in the first term because they have to stand on something for their second term. Like, oh yeah, just give me more time. I will build the wall or I will do this. I just need more time to do it. And that's kind of how they build their campaigns. And all
Well,
presidents.
genuinely,
have
you
done
can't.
that.
Sometimes you can't always get it done either in that time period, especially when
Bro,
you have
Obamacare
impeachment
didn't
hearings,
get through until
Russiagate.
his second thing, right? He was promising that from when he got elected in 2008. So like,
Then he gave us that crap that we got.
well, he didn't give us crap because I didn't take his crap, but what he did
Me
was
neither.
raise our fucking rates.
Oh, and which he said that wasn't going to happen, which was a total lie. Or
Yeah,
or
that was
he
a
just,
lie.
I don't know. I mean, I'd
It
like
hurt.
to give the benefit
It
of the
hurt
doubt,
people like me who were just single, like just me and Xana. Like it hurt us, the whole Obamacare thing, because when you change your coverage to where now this insurance company has to carry your child, quote unquote, till they're 26, that money has to come from somewhere. So as soon as Obamacare got enacted, I saw an immediate hike in my insurance premiums, my monthly payment, because now Kaiser Permanente is saying, hey, it used to be where children could only stay on till they're 23 and only if they were in college, right? If they were in school full time, that's what it used to be. If you were in school full time, you can stay on your parents' policy till you were 20, like normal age of graduating with your bachelor's. So like 22, 23. But once Obamacare came in, they said they don't have to be in school and you got to hold them till you're 26. So the premiums went up, but for the families, it helped because they're saying, okay, you're paying $300 a month. You could put as many as you want on this family plan, right? All the way till they're 26. So 7 people on this family plan, $300 a month. Whereas me, if I'm married, because Xana at the time was a student, she needed insurance. So it went under mine. If you're basically, they labeled me as a family, whether you have 1 person or 10 people. I have to be in a family plan because of Obamacare.
And then you had the individual mandate where you had to pay not
Well,
to have it. Which
when you
is
have
ridiculous.
a job, most people who have full-time jobs have benefits, and so that was no big deal. I've always had insurance because I always had a job. I worked for Ball Corporation, and
But if
they
you didn't, that was ridiculous.
well,
You had to
yeah,
pay for it.
exactly.
Stupid.
But what I'm saying is, they put me in a bunch of people where I'm paying the same amount of money as this person with 12 kids. How is that fair if it's just the 2 of us, right? But because they had to cover all those people getting put on plans, and for 10 more extra years, it fucked everyone over. And that's why insurance is... Don't get me wrong, like, there is a problem with our insurance system.
Health insurance?
Health insurance is
Absolutely,
ridiculous. There shouldn't be charging you $900 for a sack of saline when you're
ridiculous.
sick. There's no reason. Like, they should be going after big pharma and big medical companies that are charging these outlandish costs for something that costs pennies. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, it's
that's just my
ridiculous.
You think we should pass a purge?
No.
I'd go to Best Buy every year. I'd be like, "Yo, guys, get on my podcast. I got a pro setup."
Mm-hmm. I like that.
It's funny to me because I had my cousin who's like hardcore conservative, super Trump guy. That him and my brother keep fucking texting me like, "The Civil War's coming" and blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, I own more guns than all of you put together. So if there's gonna be a civil war,
You're gonna want to come to my house.
You're gonna want to come over here because they're all like, "It's okay, we'll take you and Xana as prisoners of war and shit. We'll make sure they treat you right." That's what they keep telling me, fucking around.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
What would you do during a purge, man?
Doing a purge?
Play Fortnite?
I'd rather just play Fortnite. Like, shit.
So the purge ideal is that we know the time and date, right? Like we know when it's gonna happen.
And then
Yeah,
all
it's
the
like a
crime
holiday.
is, and there's like a 1% below 1% crime all the rest of the year.
So why wouldn't you, in my opinion, if you knew, okay, it's on this date at this time, whatever, get you and your family and go
That's what I
out
would
to
do.
the middle of nowhere where there's absolutely nobody, because it's only 12 hours, right?
No, it's at 24?
Or
It's like
24 or
I think
something.
it's 12. It starts like at sometime in it.
In
Starts
the
like
night,
at
and then the
midnight or
next
something.
morning it-
At
Yeah,
noon.
something like that, right? Like it's a short amount of time. Go and chill.
That's what I'd do.
Wait it
Fuck
out.
it.
Let
What
the
happened-
city fucking burn. I don't care, and then go back home. Like if
problem
you
with
if you don't
that-
have a money for like a fortress or something.
Yeah.
They brought up, and it was funny because the Purge movie, they brought up a funny aspect I think would be real in the sense of like your insurance company, if you own a business, upping your insurance costs like a day before the
That's true.
Purge and just be like, yeah, you need to pay this amount, otherwise we're not going to cover you.
Well, you would think if you lived in a purge society that there would be things that regulated that. That was like, well, you can't overcharge for this or whatever. Or you have purge insurance. Like, hey, if your house burns down during the purge,
Oh, here
you
you
get this money.
I am
or
curious
whatever.
how many people would actually.
That Allstate guy doing commercials, I could
Like-
just see it.
I am curious how many people would actually participate in something like that.
Oh, I know plenty of people that would.
I-
Can you imagine how many homeless people would get killed?
Oh, man.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
countless people that would just go kill random folks.
That's terrible. I wouldn't
That is
kill anyone.
terrible.
I couldn't kill someone.
Oh, I
Unless it was like defending myself. or
right.
something. Yeah.
In
it's
a
like-
life or death situation, I don't think I could either. I mean, not for sport at
No,
least.
hell no.
Now, once again, if I think 100 yards away, I don't really see their face and they're just in my sights. You know what I mean? Like, I'm being honest. Like, when there's no
Like, well, here's the
connection,
opportunity.
like, when you can't see the white of their eyes, like, maybe
Yeah.
I could kill somebody like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can murk a motherfucker from far away and not and just like walk away. Like, maybe.
Uh-huh. Like, oh shit, all right, there's my day. I'm going
Maybe just perch up, with a shitload of rounds and just
home.
just start headshotting people. Just blast.
That's terrible.
You don't rank up in real life though, buddy.
What's that?
You don't get kill streaks or rank up in real
Yeah,
life.
true.
Or do you? No,
But again, once
AC
again,
130.
or maybe like
Oh,
if you're a single person or like you only have a couple people, like lock yourselves in your basement or in a cellar. Like 12 hours isn't really that long, like you can survive that. Even if you didn't have water or food, 12 hours isn't that long. You just chill, wait it out, and then go. The Purge movies just make it like on the second Purge or like the sequel. It's like, oh no, our car broke down. Well, what were you doing on the road knowing that the Purge was coming up? Like,
That-
what was so important that you had to be out
That
on
was
the
the
street?
one where they like cut their like something in their car where it could
Yeah,
only
but
drive.
why
for
were
some-
you on the
That- yeah.
out there in the first place knowing
You feel like 24 hours
hey,
beforehand,
in
you're-
4 hours, people are going to start killing people. I'm not going to be around, dude.
And other rich people
Absolutely.
had like the fortresses that would like armor up their windows and they clicked a button or something like that.
Yeah.
That was
I
pretty
do
cool.
think it is weird though that in the context of the Purge, that like an hour before the Purge, there's just people chill, like
Yeah,
you
at
go to the
restaurants and just hanging out.
or just like
chilling.
I don't understand the context of like right when the sirens like start and the Purge is over, what doesn't warrant someone to just shoot that person like if you're in a house or something,
It's
sirens go on, you shoot the person.
you need to
it's
do
after
some not philosophy, but political theory. Like this goes into like Hobbes's theories of the social contract. Everyone just agrees, so it
Yeah.
becomes normal. We all agree that once that horn blows,
I do like the
It's
aspect
over.
of how they put like the masks on. Like you don't want to be identified.
no, you don't want to know who they are. It's
Yeah.
like, what if they're your boss or something, or like not your boss, but I mean, what if there's
Your
someone you
neighbor.
know, your neighbor. Most likely, it is going to be your neighbor that you kill.
It's like what is that experiment that they did in the college?
The Stanford
Yeah,
prison
that was
experiment.
unbelievable to me. Like how that actually like
People do fucked up things, dude. People do.
Yeah, that was fun.
When you're given authority over someone and there's no repercussions,
Yep.
people do.
I just feel like I'd be
Outlandish
like, do your
things.
own thing, just don't. You know?
That's where I'm kind of like, and this is outside of the experiment, but like, I'm kind of a feminist in the sense that like, there's something truly wrong with men. Like, why do we have to teach our daughters to be careful or to not walk into dark alleys? Or it's like, you don't tell your sons that. Like, there's something inherently wrong with men and sexual assault, and just, it's just weird.
I just think we're wired differently. So I mean,
No,
that's, not an
that's what I
excuse,
mean.
absolutely
No,
not.
no, that's what I mean. There's like,
We're more violent. We're
Yeah,
more
we're
prone
just-
to that. No, that's not me and you. That's bad men, of course.
well, no, but it is us if we didn't have these like moral ideals that keep us from doing it. But we know physically, I know physically that I can overpower someone to make them do something that they don't want to do, right? But our morals and our ideals of what society is supposed to be like, how we're supposed to treat other humans, keeps us from doing that, right? But some men don't have that.
Yeah. Well, not just men. I mean, that's true.
No,
across
that's what I
the board.
mean. Like,
Yeah.
there's something in our brains. Like, what makes us in 2020?
Yeah.
What makes men think it's okay to do that? It's just, it's
Yeah.
hard to
power
wrap.
aspect.
It's hard to wrap my head
like
around.
someone
that.
like Harvey Weinstein. I mean, like you think you're on the top of the world at that point. Like you just kind of do whatever you want.
Well, that's more. I do agree with you in the sense of power, but he was also like a powerful, rich guy.
Yeah.
I'm talking about students on campuses, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
young men that just, I don't know how to explain it, like that just think it's okay to
just
do it.
Grab a woman by the pussy.
Yeah, in not so many words, yes, but like it's hard to grasp that.
It is weird. I feel like it's a brain thing. Like there's something that's a disconnect from them that's saying like us not doing it. There's something in them. It's like repeated like rapists, like someone who goes to jail for rape. They come out and they do the same thing. It's like there's something in their head that just like
That's not there. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
not like, you know, they look at a woman walking down the street, they think of that as an opportunity. Like
Right.
Yeah,
And
That's
so it's
true.
just
Or like I had a buddy of mine that he would steal stuff from his own friends, from us. He stole from us. We lived in Arizona. I lived in Arizona for a year with my best friend Jake, and then we had I probably shouldn't get into this. But anyways, there's this guy I know that would just steal shit from everyone, and it was just I don't get that mentality.
he's just like a klepto. He just kept it in like a bin in his room or something.
I don't.
What was he stealing?
I shouldn't get into it because I don't know if he's gonna watch this.
Like
but
money and shit.
money.
he stole a mass dildo.
Oh my gosh, money.
Swedish
weed.
made penis enlarger pump. What?
No, but I just don't get
Austin
people
dollars,
with that mindset that go and then they just go somewhere and they see an opportunity to steal from their friend and they're like, this is a great moment, I'm gonna do it. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I don't
goes
get
into,
that.
like,
what's going through their mind to motivate them to do
And,
it.
like, high
for
s-
me, I see my buddy and I see his nice TV. I don't think, I'm gonna take that and take it for myself. You know what I mean? I'm gonna
And
just
for
not
me,
touch
it's
it.
mostly on the side of like, okay, we have sexual desires or whatever. To me, of course, because I'm not a pedophile, I think, okay, like this woman is dressed a certain way. I'm not justifying it. I'm just trying to think of someone who's more primitive than me, who doesn't have these morals, but they see a woman who's grown and blah. For me, it's more hard to grasp is like the pedophile side of it, like children.
disgusting.
That's the thing. Like
How
my
do
friend
you
Gage
make
and I
that
talk.
decision? Like, it just blows my mind. Like, I just can't imagine it. Like, how do you make that decision to be a predator in that sense?
That's so
You
weird.
know,
That's what my
it's
friend
just
Gage
weird.
and I
It's
were
just
just talking about. We talked about like, okay, if sexual like desires, you can't really choose it in a way. Like you have your certain things that you like, and you can't necessarily identify like why you like the thing you like. When it comes to pedophilia, if you can't choose what you're attracted to, if you get dealt a bad hand of cards and you're attracted to children, like where do you go to help where do you go for help for that? Let's say you don't act upon it, but you're like, there's
Well, you have to find a way for help.
Where though?
Well, you can go to a doctor. You can tell your therapist. You can tell your thing.
You hearing it, Victor? That's what you need to do.
I'm this.
Matt, you're the one who watched
These are
Cuties.
the thoughts
right.
I'm having. You can do that. It's the point of acting on it.
Yeah.
And not more so acting as in physical, but like if you're having child pornography on your computer.
On Biden's...
That's acting. You know? To me, that's acting on it.
Yeah.
Whether you're hurting a child or not, if you're conspiring to get child pornography, that child is being hurt in some way.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
you're
do think-
indirectly.
And typically
It's different.
pedophiles are
And
really
so
smart.
you can
too.
get help for it.
It's different, and this is a little bit off topic, but like in high school setting, how you can get charged with child pornography if you and your girlfriend are like, what, 16,
Well,
17,
yeah,
and she sends
context is stupid. Like,
I think there should be a different law or rule for that. Like, I don't think you should get charged with child pornography if you
Right.
and your girlfriend are like...
well, like me, I don't know about you guys when you're in high school, but like, we thought, like, in my culture, in my time, it was all the rage for seniors to date freshmen. Because they're the new,
I thought that was weird.
They're the
I saw that
new
weird.
girls. Like,
Yeah.
you've seen these other girls for 3 years. Like, you don't care about them. Like,
I
the
think
new
that's
set
true
of
no matter
girls.
what age
but
you are.
people always thought it was weird that a 17, potentially 18-year-old was dating a 15. You know, some kids were 14 if they were 14 in ninth grade, they quickly turned 15. Like, the ages they did it. But if you're in the same school, I never thought there was a problem. I dated freshmen when I was a senior. Like,
I thought it was weird because I was a sophomore and I was dating an 8th grader, and I thought that was like the most, like, I thought I was gonna be like made fun of for that. And then as you get older, the rage is all about the younger girls.
well, yeah, it is weird in that sense when you shift the paradigm of age.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, when you're a freshman, you're 15. Would you ever date an 11-year-old?
Hell no.
No, right?
Yeah, that's a good
because
point.
when you switch that time frame, like,
Yeah.
I make people kind of cringe when I say this, but like, Xana was in 8th grade when I was a senior in high school. Mm-hmm. So if I dated her at that time, it would have been really weird, right?
Good
But
point.
when you meet each other later in life, when you're both adults,
Yeah.
then the difference doesn't make any, or the age difference doesn't make any real difference, right?
Yeah, it's
but it's
totally
it's
normal.
all within that. But to me, I've always told people I go off of the high school like rule. You know, like if you're within that time frame, then it's all game. You know what I mean?
And do you agree with the age of consent of 16 in Washington?
It's debatable. I mean, I don't think there should be an age of consent in the sense at any age. Like, we shouldn't say if someone's being forced to do something they don't want to do, it shouldn't matter how old they are.
Yeah, that's true.
That's where I go.
I feel like that's
where I go.
universally
But there
accepted.
is, I know people personally, I have family personally that had relationships with someone that was younger, and the only reason why age came up was because their parents didn't like the person.
Mm-hmm.
But the girl or the guy that was younger was totally okay with it. So I think there is a certain amount of consent that should be okay. Like, yeah, like a 16-year-old should be able to say whether they have a relationship with a 20-year-old, you know, or whatever, as long as that 20-year-old isn't making that person do something they don't want to do.
Do you think it's like a weird flip-flop if it was like a female dating like a 25-year-old who's 16? Like a 16-year-old female dating a 25-year-old male compared to a 16-year-old male dating a 25-year-old female?
There's definitely a difference.
Well,
There's
there.
a different
there's
stigma.
different-
That's just like
Yeah.
the teacher.
Everyone's going to say you're the man if you're younger dating an older chick.
Yeah.
You know, but if you're a guy dating someone who's younger,
That much younger though. Yeah.
You know,
like
they're
a little
gonna-
bit, like with you and Xana, that'd be like applauded.
Yeah.
But like that much younger, that's a weird one. And that did happen in high school where there was like guys that were like in their like mid 20s
Oh,
like
yeah.
dating like
I knew-
freaking girls
I
that I
knew
was
people
going
from
to
my
school
hometown.
with.
There was people at
Yeah.
homecoming who brought their like 20-something-year-old boyfriends when I was in high school.
They didn't
It
let
was-
you bring anyone who was over 21 when I was in high school.
Really?
Yeah, so even if you had a boyfriend or girlfriend that was older, if they were if they could buy booze, they didn't let them come. You know what I mean? Yeah. But if there was a 20-year-old, they would let them.
There's also that stigma with teachers too. If a male teacher sleeps with a female student, it's like all disgusting and wrong and awful. But then if a male sleeps with a female teacher,
Man.
yeah, that's like every
Yeah.
guy's dream.
It's a one-way street. I mean, but obviously history and like society has deemed it so, right? Like we don't see females as predators in that way. We don't see them as things.
What about female spiders?
Even though they,
Aren't they the dominant one?
yeah, they're the ones that kill.
Yeah, they're the ones that eat the mate.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
it's weird.
It is a weird conversation to have, you know, and obviously, like, there's all those like memes and stuff on the internet too. Like, these were the girls when I was in 8th grade versus the 8th grade girls now. Completely
Totally
different. Like,
yeah,
completely different. So, you know,
like Charlie D'Amelio, whatever. She's like 14, but she looks like she's like 23 or 24.
yeah,
You wouldn't know that, Matt.
Well, everybody knows who
Those
she
are
is.
the kinds of things that I'm talking about. Or, you know, that rapper girl, Bad Baby.
Oh,
you know,
yeah, that's a good example.
Cash Me Outside girl, right?
Or who's the other one?
Super young, but looks and acts like an adult, right?
Yeah,
And whatever.
super ghetto.
But where do we draw the line? I think inherently as humans, males are attracted to young females because biologically we know they can have children. Like if we go down all the way down to just our animalistic instincts,
very true.
right? Like we're going to always, males biologically will always be attracted to females. But that's why we're a species
Unless you're
above-
not like Matt.
Well, I'm saying, but that's why we're the high species because we develop intimate relationships, or we love a partner or multiple partners and moralities,
humor
that keep us all those things. But the bottom line is, and I think we cross this in a lot of subjects we talk about, is the protection of people who don't know better. So children, right?
Yeah, the innocence.
We need to. It's hard to determine whether they know what's good for them or not because their brain is still developing. So 16, I think, is a fair assessment legally to say whether they have consent or not. But some might argue the brain isn't totally developed till they're 25. And in reality, do they really have their best interests at heart when they're making decisions before then? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough subject.
That is, yeah. Well, we could wrap up there. You guys got any final thoughts or?
I'm hungry. What are you guys gonna eat after this?
Let's go get some food. I'm done.
Should we get some trackside?
To those of you who haven't voted, if this goes out before the election, go out and vote, guys.
Mm-hmm. Who are you voting for again? Or who did you vote?
I voted for Biden Harris, and I voted for, we didn't even get into it, but I voted for Jay Inslee.
Oh.
I just don't like that Lauren Culp guy. I would have voted for
Did you watch the
Republican.
debate?
But
I didn't get the chance to watch the debate.
I didn't watch the second one. I watched the first one.
I didn't know there was a second one. I thought there was only one.
No, there's two.
There was two.
I didn't watch it, but I just heard.
I watched
just
it.
read stuff about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like Lauren Culp.
I didn't like Lauren Culp.
Yeah, I like that they try to get our tabs down to $30. I like that. I
That's
don't like
gonna
paying.
go through. It's gonna go through. 'cause
It's supposed to. The only reason it
yeah.
has it is because Inslee wants every fucking cent you got in your pocket. There's like no denying that. Even when he came to our campus, he was complaining about
I'm
it.
sorry,
I can't get
I
$300
just
out of
can't-
you anymore. I'm like, dude, not
I
everyone's
can't
making
get
6
on
figures like
board
you.
with a dude, because with you, when we have these conversations, you see the point and you can agree at least to a point when it comes to systemic racism that it happens to a certain point. We might debate on how severe it is or how in depth it is, but at least you say you think it, or you believe it happens and you acknowledge that it happens. Lauren Culp straight up does not believe in systemic racism. He said it out loud, and I just can't get behind someone who can't acknowledge certain facts about his own system.
But what about your finances, though? That's for me.
That's
That's a
the
big
thing.
one.
I'm willing to sacrifice my finances
For a better
social thing, and that's my whole thing with Trump. Trump created a great economy. Like, we cannot doubt that.
But
COVID
then my
situation
argument to that
was
would be-
whatever. I think Biden makes better choices for a lot of other people. It might not benefit me directly.
You can have
What
a
was the thing
great.
that Trump banned?
But here's the thing. I want to go into this.
Was it the thing
You
that
can
they were
have
teaching
a-
in colleges?
What's that?
The thing that they were teaching in colleges, he banned it. I can't remember the formal name of it.
I don't know.
Where they were hating on white people. They were teaching people to hate white people.
You mean white racism?
No.
Trump
was
stopped
it?
all the diversity training within the,
I can't
you know,
remember
that
his
kind of
name.
stuff. I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. What was I gonna say?
Critical race theory.
But the
is
way
what
I
was
see it
talking
though
about.
is if nobody, or if the opportunity goes away for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, et cetera, that Trump could create or has created and is going to create with an improving economy, and then you only focus on social issues but neglect the economy, then everybody's gonna be equally in a bad
But
position.
that's right. I agree with you, but I don't think the Biden-Harris administration is going to completely ignore the economy.
I think they're going to hurt it. It's not going to ignore. It's going to be
focus on social issues. You know, people said all the same stuff about Obama.
Mm-hmm.
They said
you can't overemphasize one or the other. Either way, it's whatever.
I think to your point from the beginning of the podcast, if we really look at it, I think Trump and Biden have way more in common than they do apart. And that's the way I see it. They're just cogs in this machine that we have to participate in. And to me, it's our civic duty. It's our duty as citizens to participate in. Some people don't believe that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's fine. But
only if you know. Only if you know what you're talking about.
I'm voting for the one that I think is going to do a better job by the whole multitude, not just for myself. And that's the way I got to go. Like I told you guys in the text really quick, I feel worse for you guys because you live in a blue state where your vote seems like it doesn't really mean anything.
Do you think California's going to flip?
No.
I don't know. With the way that
I think it very well could. I think New York is likely to flip. That's what I think.
Maybe.
But and that's a stretch too.
A lot of people are thinking Texas might flip because of all the people that left LA.
Yeah, going to Austin.
Texas ain't never gonna.
I hope not.
This is, I think, the third year in a row that like Dallas County has been blue, which is strange.
Weird.
But
yeah.
that's, Dallas and Austin and Houston.
That might change too.
Texas is so huge.
That might change too because Texas is
a red state.
Yeah, their homeless population, especially in Austin, is just terrible. Like their economy there is not doing so hot. They're probably gonna flip back.
Alex
to red.
Jones. What was he? Alex Jones and Steven Crowder when they were just walking through Texas.
Oh, it was a hobo piss.
No, that was the hobo piss and the dust.
And the dust mites.
Oh my God. We can't
Anyways,
Alex Jones, say something else.
Yeah, getting back. Yeah, so I'm voting for President Trump just to close out on that because I believe the opposite. I think that improving the economy, improving everybody's finances. I think if you put a bunch of money in the hands of people that have struggled to get it, you make it easier access, better opportunity. That's gonna solve the social issues by itself. Just improving the economy to that level. So that's the way I'm viewing it. I think the economy is something that should be looked at. We need to cut into that debt if any of us want to have a future. So hopefully he'll take care of it. That's why I'm voting for him. One of many reasons. But
sweet, and thank you all for watching.